Do we want to host it on our YouTube as well? That's oh yeah, I'll 100% it'll be on the website. Okay, all right. Okay.
Hello, can everybody hear me? We have a few folks still walking in. We're gonna start here in about 5 minutes, y'all. If you haven't got breakfast, go ahead and get breakfast. If you didn't sign in at the registration, please sign in so we can have your information for future updates. Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again. we will begin today. If you haven't got breakfast, feel free to get breakfast. Attention, 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 attention. Good morning. Again, on behalf of the New Mexico Automotive Industry Alliance, I welcome you and I thank you for being here, for joining us this Saturday morning. For those that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Adelina Torres. I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director of the New Mexico Automotive Industry Alliance. Today is especially meaningful because for many of us, this is our first time that we get the opportunity to meet. I hope this isn't simply the start, right? But it's a future that we build together, a partnership. I hope it's the beginning of a lasting relationship between our organization and your industry. Again, thank you for taking the time away from your businesses. We understand that every truck parked outside is money. So I appreciate that, you taking the interest and of being here. And I also wanted to recognize the important work you all do for our community. It's one of the most challenging, I'm sure, and one of the most unappreciated, I would think, because nobody thinks about the towers until you need them, right? Thank you for what you do, for showing up when we all need you, and for keeping New Mexico roads safe. Many of you may be wondering who we are. The New Mexico Automotive Industry Alliance is a statewide trade association dedicated to supporting, educating, and advocating for the automotive industry. While many of you may know that we have worked with independent dealers, we have now embraced and included into our fold the towing and trucking industries and many of the other supporting businesses in the automotive industry. Our mission is simple. We exist to be your advocate, your resource, and your partner. We feel and believe strongly that the strongest industries are built when business owners, regulators, policymakers, and associations can sit at the same table and have honest conversations and work together towards practical solutions. That's exactly why we're here today. Rather than allowing those conversations to happen from a distance, we wanted to bring everyone together in the same room to begin building relationships founded on communication, transparency, and mutual respect. Our goal is to open the door to ongoing dialogue, and that's what we're doing here today. My vision is for this association to be a place where towing professionals like yourselves have a voice, where you receive quality education, where you stay informed on legislative and regulatory changes, where relationships are built, and where you know you have an organization advocating alongside you. Today is not the finish line, it's the beginning. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce our incredible team that works very hard every day to serve our members across New Mexico. Our Chief Operating Officer, Marty Lynn Duran. Our Member Development Lead, Luis Soto, who works directly with members throughout the state, and his supporting teammates, Gabby Vega and Yadira Marquez. Some of you received phone calls from these two lovely women to register you and inform you of today's town hall. That's part of our duty and responsibility. Representing our southern part of the state is Joe Meilander, our Southern Regional Director, who is there to support you all down south. Alongside Mr. Joe Meilander, we have Teresa Garcia, our MVD Director, who supports our MVD needs. We We have 3 partner offices, Albuquerque, Las Cruces, and Carlsbad. So those of you that do your towing needs and need the titles, visit one of our offices. We're here to help support you. In the middle, we have Katie Chavez, who leads our web and media digital content. Katie is recording today's presentation, so those of you that have friends that weren't able to come and you want to share that link will be live tweeted on our website, www.itmaia.org. We'll also send it out via email, so if you want to share, feel free. This morning is about partnership. It's about bringing industries together, leaders together, government together, not across the table from one another, but around the same one. So, with that being said, I think we have our first guest here. To begin the program, we're honored to welcome Mr. Greg Hull, the candidate for the Republican candidate for the governor. He's not here yet. Oh, well, I apologize for that, y'all. He will be here shortly. We do have, and I'm sorry, I don't want to catch you with the full mouth of Alicia. You all probably have heard or know of Ms. Alicia Ortiz. She's with DOT. And also with us today, we have a company that we feel could be beneficial to all in this room. GovTow, Brenda will be speaking to us later. But I'd like to take any questions about our organization, what we are here to do, if you all wish to ask further questions. We are waiting for our Republican gubernatorial candidate, Mr. Greg Hull, who wanted to come and speak to you. He's a supporter of the automotive industry as a whole. He is a car guy himself from the past and wants to meet all of the small businesses that contribute to our economy in New Mexico. So I'll leave it open if anybody would like to ask any questions. Mr. Mark, I knew you would be the first one.
So did you guys offer the low-cost health insurance to the membership?
Yes, we do. So we have a program, and in the middle of the tables, we grabbed anything. You'll see some of our member benefits on here. The first one is through 5 Points. It's a veteran-owned business that offers, it's not extensive and not your traditional health coverage, so let me be clear on that, but it does give you basic coverages for exams, blood tests, things of that nature. If you need to have an x-ray, if you need to visit the urgent care, it covers on those things. But through our membership, we've managed to work out a deal with them where they offer our members starting at $95 a month. There are family plans. We offer it to some of ours. We offer it to all of our staff. If not, we also have traditional coverage through our organization for our staff. But it is beneficial for those that, you may not have any major concerns health-wise, but need something in case you do need to visit the urgent care. You're able to do so at a much affordable rate. With our member benefits, you also have some sponsors that offer additional items like advanced auto parts. When you are a member of our organization, quarterly they give 3% rebates on products that are sold at their stores. If any of you take credit cards, we have a merchant service company, Clearant, who also includes and gives our members the first free terminal, and you're able to pass on those credit card fees to the customers. With our MBD offices, as members, you are also receiving a discount member rate, and you also have 5 free title transactions where we waive our fee. It's not the state fee, okay? We still got it. But we do waive our service fee. We have a division that supports insurance and bonds. So I know that's a topic for those of you that are, struggling with insurance on your businesses. We are partnering with several other, companies that can assist and bring in some support there. If you have been inspections, if you have a notary need, we offer those services through our MVD in our office. But we also help with bonds. So if you are an inspector yourself and you need to renew your bond, you can reach out to us and we can do that for you. And some of our local radio companies have also offered some advertising for you all. So being a member gives you perks, but I think the most important here is the advocacy and the support and the coming together, knowing you have someone that is working alongside you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So your bid inspections, you said you have a location for all that.
Yes, we do.
So do you have like a travel bid inspection?
We do. Yep. So our offices are called the NBD. It's pretty clever, right? Because usually if you're at the NBD, oh, I'm at the NBD. So we went off of that, the NBD, so the NBD, that's what it's powered by NMAIA, so we are the organization that owns those offices, those partner offices.
Okay, yeah, so our local, even state, we provide more of these.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
so we have to farm them out right now to do our data problem.
Are they doing all the legwork for you? Or you do the legwork and they process the tollings?
Yeah, they do the legwork, they process totally, they come to us, do the inspections.
Gotcha. Yeah, we have, so get with us, we'll send you the details. But we have a gentleman out in Carlsbad that goes out and does the inspections. You'll just schedule through them and he'll show up when you need him. Yeah. I heard a question about membership price. Our membership dues are $330 a year. We understand you are small businesses, so we also have a monthly rate. So what we require for that is a credit card on file. You'd be charged monthly at $27.50. Again, we work with small businesses, so we understand the need that small businesses have, and $330 could be a lot upfront, so we have developed a program where we just collect on that monthly. If you are interested in joining our alliance, please visit either Miss Gabby Vega or Miss Yadira Marquez or Luis Soto back there, and they can get you signed up if you're interested in joining our association. The more members we have, the better impact we have in Santa Fe when it comes to lobbying for our industry. Any other questions? How many of you are excited to get answers from Ms. Alicia Ortiz? I'm sure everybody in this room, right? She's excited to speak to y'all too. So I just got a text saying that he'll be here in 4 minutes. Can y'all hang tight for 4 minutes? Should I sing the song? Just kidding.
Yeah.
Any questions for our staff? How many of you have heard of us? How many of you knew what we did?
Oh, what you do?
Yeah. What do I do? What don't I do is the question. Mr. Lucchini, you know I've helped you many times. All right, well, I'm gonna leave the mic alone. I can go on. Nobody has any questions for me. But I like to see that you guys have heard of the organization and the work we do, and I appreciate that. please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us with any questions or concerns. It's a pleasure of ours to help you and our industry.
Now is the time to refill coffee cups. I have a good, I can project my way, so I don't need mine, but if y'all need more coffee, feel free to have more coffee. It would be very good and interesting way to start dialogue.
Thank you all for being such patient folk. I appreciate you. It's my pleasure to introduce our gubernatorial public candidate, Mr. Greg Holm. Please welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to come and speak to this group of individuals that provide such a critical service to the citizens of New Mexico. The towing industry is a huge industry in the state, and as your next governor, I want to work very closely with this industry to make sure that we have a balanced approach to how the industry is regulated. But just let me give you a little background to give you a little bit about myself, because to many of you in the room, you've never met me before. I want to get to know as many of you as possible. And unfortunately, today I'm on a very tight timeline, but I'm going to give you a little bit of my background, my history. I moved to New Mexico in 1986. And I moved to Santa Fe originally, so I've been in the state for about 40 years. Raised my 5 children here and now 9 grandchildren. And one of the big problems that I have, which many people have in the state, is our children and our grandchildren are leaving the state to find opportunities elsewhere. And that's one of the reasons that in 2012, I sold my packing and shipping company and decided to run for mayor of Rio Rancho. And just did not appreciate the business climate in the city at that time. And I thought, well, as a small business owner, I think I can make a difference helping businesses in our community. And in my 12 years of being the mayor of Rio Rancho, we facilitated between $6 and $7 billion worth of private investment in that community. And it's become the fastest growing community in the state once again, and has been nationally recognized as the best place to live, the safest city to live in. And and as many of you all know, we have a real strict traffic operation that goes on in Rio Rancho. So you don't want to be speeding in Rio Rancho. But that, I think, sends a message that we want to be a safe city. And that also resulted in the fact that when we would do our citizen surveys, the last citizen survey that we did before I left office, 97% of people surveyed that lived in the city said that they feel safe in the community during the day. And that is really one of the things that we strive for as a goal, is to make sure that we're providing great community services and we're a great place to live. Now, I want to do that for the state of New Mexico. And for a lot of the same reasons that you all are here today, to advocate for rules and regulations and tariffs and things as such, that you want to have a greater voice in that industry. And I remember when I ran my packing and shipping business, and before that, I was actually in the mobile home industry. And I knew that there were just a huge amount of regulations around just towing the mobile home from one place in the state to the other. And so there are huge regulations in the packing and shipping industry. And of course, one of the industries we dealt very closely with was the local moving industry, which required a lot of certifications and a lot of permissions to be a local mover in the state of New Mexico. And so understanding all these regulations, they were being built from the top down, the government down, and made it very restrictive to do business in the state. So as a former small business owner, I understand some of the struggles that when bureaucrats get involved in your business and have very little understanding of what you do on a day-to-day basis, and don't bring you to the table when rules and regulations are being developed and tariffs are being proposed, and you all don't have an equal voice at that table. It's important to bring each industry to the table to make sure that their voice is being heard and these things are being developed. And so as your next governor, I'm committed to working directly with your industry to make sure that if there are statewide tariffs, and how those are going to be adjusted or what they're going to be set at, that those are recommendations that come from the industry itself, that have knowledge of what's going on in the industry. I know there's a lot of things that are affecting your industry right now as well, that are having an impact on your ability to run a profitable business. I know in some cases, gross receipts tax has played a huge role in some of your businesses as being an impediment to a big profit. And I want to make sure that we're working with your industry to understand that as well. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and propose to know everything about the tow industry, but I do know that it plays a vital and critical role. You all are business owners. You operate business, you generate jobs, you generate revenues, you generate a major part of the economy in the state of New Mexico. And so that's why I'm very proud to always address the New Mexico Auto Industry Association here in the different aspects that they represent. And I'm looking forward to working with every industry in the state of New Mexico. There's a lot of things that we're going to need to do to get New Mexico back on track. In a recent poll that we did, 65% of the people polled do not believe New Mexico's heading in the right direction. And I think it's time that we have somebody that's had some experience, not only as a business owner, but as a municipal leader in the Roundhouse, who work closely with our industries, work closely with recruiting businesses and making sure that we're moving New Mexico in the right direction for our businesses. And we make the business environment as accommodating as possible. We do want to balance citizen protections as well, but at the same point in time, businesses need the opportunity to survive and thrive in our state. And so with that, I could go into a lot of the other different policies that I'm going to be working on in the state of New Mexico that I know that impact each and every one of us. Healthcare is going to be a huge issue in this coming up election, in the upcoming legislature. Healthcare. And making sure that we continue medical malpractice reforms and continue to move that forward. Another big item that we're going to be really focused on going in the next legislative session is education in the state of New Mexico. We've got to work with our K through 12 education to make sure that our kids are having the opportunity to succeed as they come out of high school. And so we want to make sure that they have the choice. If they want to go to college, great. If they don't want to go to college, then go right into a career field that fits with them. So I'm going to be big on CTE, which is career technical education, helping train kids up for the trades and helping them to be successful in whatever field they choose. I'm a perfect example of not everybody goes to college. I came out of high school and went right into the workforce. And I believe that, you know, I wanted to get right to work. I was kind of done with sitting in the classroom all day, right? And I just felt like I wanted to get busy and start working. So I went to work as an apprentice for a trim carpenter in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. And I was also cleaning hotel rooms, working as a housekeeper in a hotel. And so not every kid wants to take the same path. But every kid needs to understand that there is opportunity. We live in the greatest country in the world right here, where opportunity abounds. And if you had told me 15, 20 years ago that I was going to be the mayor of my city and that one day I'd be running for the governor of my state, I would have told you you were out of your mind, because it was just a business guy trying to raise my family, trying to get by in a state that was not being very business friendly. The only time the state showed up at my business was to audit me, not to help me. And we're going to change that climate in the state of New Mexico, because our businesses are the lifeblood of our community. And I know it because I have the tax receipts to show how much I paid in gross receipts over the years. I have the tax receipts to show how much I paid in payroll taxes. I have the tax receipts to show how much I paid in personal income tax, which, by the way, and I don't think this is a pipe dream, and I really don't think it's going to be promised. We've done some actuarials on this. The time is right. And I will be working to eliminate personal income tax in the state of New Mexico. It will be one of the first things that I step into when I'm here to go. And I believe the money's there. That's not an empty campaign promise. The state has the revenues, and if we put it, right now, personal income tax represents about $2.2 billion in the total overall budget, which is about 16%. It's the quickest way to put money back into the pockets of people. And actually, it's not putting it back, it's just leaving it where it belongs. And so I'm going to work very hard at doing that. That would put $2.2 billion back into the local economy. And just that money alone would stimulate growth and create and generate new revenue for the state of New Mexico through other business activities that are happening in the state. So there's a lot that I'm sure you guys we want to discuss today. I know, and I want to recognize, I just saw Diane Varela back there, a good friend of mine. So appreciate seeing you here today. And I know that we're all working hard to change the business climate in the state of New Mexico. So I'm excited to be here and have this opportunity to address you. I know you've got a lot of questions for DOT, but I just want to assure you that under a whole administration, you're going to have a seat at the table, and we're going to work through these issues, and we're going to make sure that they are industry specific and industry driven, not bureaucratic driven. So with that, I will take a few questions. If you have any questions about some of the different industries or policies or things that I've got my focus on. But I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm not a tow truck driver. I'm not in the tow truck industry, so I may not have all the answers to all of your questions today. But you have my commitment. You will have a seat at the table so that we can work through those questions and get those answers together. So with that, thank you guys very much. And I just really appreciate being invited to speak here this morning. So any quick questions or, that I can address for you today?
I do have a microphone over here, so if you do have a question, let me know. I know.
That
Bring
voice
it
came
right
out of
over to you.
nowhere. All right. Well, okay, Amy, couldn't resist.
Couldn't resist, I want to put you on the spot here. But we know that New Mexico is a litigation state,
Yes,
and that hurts our industry because our options for insurance coverage is extremely limited.
yes.
What do you think you can do to be able to make us no longer a litigation state and to expand our coverage options?
Well, we've already started tort reform as it applies to medical malpractice. We need to expand that and move forward to make sure that we do have tort reforms and limits on claims. Because a lot of these claims are just being blown out of proportion. And I think some of the awards and some of the settlements that are coming out are what are driving the inflated insurance costs in the state of New Mexico. It happened in the medical industry. It's happening in just about every industry you can look at because there's just, New Mexico in all of the problems that it has, it's been identified as this pot of wealth and opportunity for attorneys to come in and just sue, for limitless amounts of money. So I think tort reform is something that we're going to have to work closely with on the legislature. But Amy, you saw the pushback, when we tried to fix medical malpractice and put caps on those punitive claims. I mean, we were recognized nationally as having the largest punitive award in the country, right here in the state of New Mexico. So for a poor state, we sure have some big jackpot payouts, don't we? But once again, I think that us being a poor state is a false narrative because we're sitting on one of the richest sovereign funds in the country. We're just not investing it properly. We're not protecting our citizens properly, and we're not protecting our companies and our businesses properly. So I think legislative reform is something we're going to have to work on. Can I do that unilaterally as the governor of New Mexico? No, but I do know that we put a lot of pressure on the legislature to get tort reform in the healthcare industry. And now I think that we can put a lot of pressure to bring tort reform in some of the other industries as well. And it's just going to take the industries banding together and sending out a message. I love what Presbyterian did with the commercials they ran last year of disappearing doctors. That's a perfect example of what was happening. And now, how do we get those doctors back in the state? How do we get these businesses back in the state? Well, I think eliminating personal income tax is going to make us very competitive for those professional industries. And that'll start bringing those doctors back in the state as well, as long as they know that we're going to protect them and that they won't be subject to limitless lawsuits. But the lawsuit, the award that set national records was $420 million, and it ended up putting a company out of business. That will never get paid out. It was a ridiculous award that bankrupted a company, and it will not get paid out. And so we've got to figure out how to work with our legislators. But you know this as well as I do. It's going to be hard because we have so many attorneys that are legislators, and we've got a lot of attorneys that are running to capture legislative seats right now because they want to take that cap back off of that medical malpractice. We got into their pockets, if you will, and they're not happy about it. So we're going to want to make sure that we work closely and the industry has a strong voice, but the industries also need an advocate in the governor's office to help push this stuff through. And that's what I can make a commitment on, is that I will be an advocate. Okay. All right. Well, thank you once again. I really appreciate the opportunity. If there are any questions that you have, you can certainly email me at greg@gregcole.com. We'll leave some information for you back there. I don't know if we passed out cards or not, but we'll make sure that we leave you some cards on how to get hold of me. If you have something that you'd like to talk about specifically, you can always feel free to give me a call. We'll make sure that your numbers and email addresses are available. And if you would like to know how to get involved with our campaign, we'd love to hear from you. Once again, our website is gregcole.com. It's pretty easy to remember. And just remember to spell it with the 2 G's on the end, GREGG. But with that, I'll let you guys get on with your business. And once again, thank you for the opportunity to address this critical industry in the state of New Mexico this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, for being with us this morning and taking the time to speak to our members. Our next presenter is Alicia Ortiz, who leads the Department of Transportation with the state. As many of you know, the transition of regulatory oversight to Mexico DOT has brought many questions throughout the towing industry. So today's presentation is an opportunity to hear clarity from the agency and gain better understanding of compliance. So welcome, Alicia.
Thank you so much. When you talk about sometimes, acts that are difficult to follow, gubernatorial candidate can sometimes be a fun challenge. But we have a lot of really good information to share with you today, and I do appreciate the opportunity to be here, thanks to the Alliance, and to you all for being open to a dialogue and communication. I think there are a couple of things that I definitely want to touch on. So a lot of what's going into this presentation today are some of the experiences that we've had over the last 2 years since the transition from PRC over to DOT. And 100% transparency and honesty, it's been a learning path for us at DOT. There is a lot of nuance to the statutes and regulations that govern the work that you all do and that we do in regulating that. I think that there has been a lot of people that I've talked with in the towing industry. I think there was a lot of hesitation for a long time to have open lines of communication with PRC and particular investigation with PRC. That is, thank you. And I want to be able to open up and make sure that you all know that we serve as a resource. I really appreciate what Mr. Hall said about bureaucracy, regulation. Because sometimes it can feel like, man, I just want to do my business. These are my tow trucks. These are my clients. These are the contracts I have. I just want to go out there. This is how we support my family. This is how we're supporting the community. And the regulation can feel like it's getting in the way. And like it's restricting your ability to do your business and to do your business well. And I hope that as we continue to have our dialogue, we're able to demonstrate that what we can offer as an agency is so much more than that. I think you all having a voice makes a huge difference. I really appreciate the work that Amy did initially, going to the legislature a couple of years ago and making sure that we as a department heard that you guys wanted to make sure that your voice was heard. And I did a presentation about a year and a half ago, or maybe, a friend of mine put together something called side yard sessions, because we were gathered like this to kind of talk and go to movies and have coffee and all those things. So she set things up that people could, in her side yard, have these discussions, and she just invited people to come and make presentations. And she knew that I was a bureaucrat and provided service. At the time, I was working for the division. And so, well, I just left it in the more than anything. So my presentation was about the bureaucrat and what my goal is as a policymaker. And if you look at the pure definition of bureaucrat or bureaucracy, it's finding efficiencies and effectiveness in processes and procedures, regardless of the direct impact on the consumer or the user of those services. And I don't think that's appropriate. I think we should be looking for efficiency, effectiveness, and equitable provision of services. But I do think that we need to consider the people who are using those services and the people who are providing those services. So I consider myself a bureaucrat at heart. Just also, you know, our relationship with the Alliance is really based on the model that I've had experience with them at MVP, working with DOT. I was at MVP for 2 years, and I did almost everything from the division here, starting out with the field offices, was for central operations, and then acting director and director for the law for DOT. So we already have a strong relationship, I think, with the Alliance and the team and some models to work with in terms of making sure, in that case, we're working with automotive, like we were working with automotive industry, pretty much all of the phone carriers that we are working with. So, yes, I'm not easy out there. The couple of things that we wanted to talk about today, here's all my contact information. Everybody pretty much has it. Everybody have my number. Anybody who's angry, contact me. And I think that most folks have been able to figure out how to get hold of folks that DOT's contribution information here. But this is my contact information. Some of the contracts that have been available to everybody have changed. Transition has not been an easy one for us from PRC over to DOT. We had difficulty filling vacancies. We had 15 employees that transferred over from PRC to DOT. Of those 15, we currently have now just 3. So there's been a lot of staff turnover, a lot of expertise, and again, that nuance, is something that we're really trying to figure out how to make sense of. At GOT, you don't always see things the way that PRC did, so some things, our interpretations of the statute and regulation are a little bit different. And, some of the regulations change, not so much the statute, regulations change from PRC to GOT. So what I'd like to do today is introduce myself, talk about accessibility, because I think you all have your voice, like Mr. Hall said, in the conversation that we had in our session a couple of weeks ago, is really important. So I want to make sure that you all know what we do and who to contact for certain things. And I want to talk a little bit about why what we do matters, and then provide a whole list of updates that really comes from a lot of the activity that we've seen over the last 2 years. And then for sure, opportunity for some questions, Q&A. But more than anything, I really want to thank you guys. I've been making the rounds a little bit earlier. Some of you I've already met, some of you I met for the first time. There's you that I'm not going to remember most of the names from this morning, but I just want you all to know that, that we're accessible. We are accessible. So what we do, we actually have 2 separate programs for business operations within our Transportation Regulation Bureau. That's what we're called, in the legislation and, kind of on our organizational spreadsheet. My boss, however, refers to me as a division director. Sometimes you'll really talk about Transportation Regulation Division, Bureau. Sometimes the division or bureau that has 2 separate programs, coincidentally, with our budget for the United States for our courts, and then ordinary regulations. So sometimes I'll refer to this also as regulation bureau. So within our program, we have 2 areas. We have operations that's managed by a gentleman named Tomas Glover, who's been with us since November. And that group primarily receives, reviews, and processes applications, posts notice for those applications. We have to, we're required to post notice for any new application for a certificate. We don't do it for warrants or for company permits. And then when we get applications for title changes, those also have to be noticed. And so that they provide those notices, they issue operating authorities. So we have things to be finalized, and we know that we've got full authority to issue that warrant, that permit, that application. And then we have an investigations group. And that's headed up by a gentleman named Miguel Archuleta, who's one of the employees who did Global PRC, so he has a lot of background. And sometimes there are conversations about, I see that's how PRC did, this is kind of how we want to do it. I think that leads to maybe some you also trying to figure out how to make it very good, consistent across the board. And what they do, they conduct inspections on a regular basis. They have a little bit of difficulty getting out to regular routine inspections because of the number of investigations, complaints that we get that we investigate. Sometimes need a lot of resources. So he then has a team of, I think he has 9 actual positions. And as of right now, 5 of them are filled, working on getting the 6th. We're reserving 1 for potential move over to DOH. Some other legislation that impacts ambulances happens. That if they're asked to. And then we have a couple others that are just regulations that are difficult to go over from. And overall, the whole team of Transportation Regulation Bureau is headed up by me, and everybody in our team is available to provide technical assistance to verify compliance, and sometimes we'll talk a little bit about compliance in a while. Facilitate enforcement actions depending on what they are. We all kind of come together to make sure that we are taking action as we need to. As necessary, we will all include hearings and other legal proceedings. Of course, we're all available to engage in public engagement and have interactions with our trade organizations. So here's the contact information. Tomas is the operations manager. Mr. Boyce, who's also one of the employees that we work with PRC, is right now. And Ms. Ortiz is our senior business operations analyst. She's active at PRC. She moved after we came back, so she'll be back. And then Liz Maria and Ashley Pupil will also, Ashley is our primary contact for insurance, financial responsibility verification, and Nick, who to share this presentation with the license and distribute to all of this because we allow folks to photos and sometimes they come out clearly, sometimes they don't, I don't know how great I'm gonna look at them, you know, they're like me going, up to take coffee, that's gonna be how, my 15 minutes, maybe do that, but I'll share with them. And then from the investigation side, there's all the contact information we're getting, is investigators right now, James and Molly, so they're, like I said, James and Molly are both, moving over to PRC, so holding on, so then they're actually four. Stacy is, new, she's definitely, got a lot of good background with, commercial vehicles, worked at Ford, Valerie and Blair is out in the southern part of the state, and, he has a lot of different background. Andrew Lucero is the newest member of our team. He also has a lot of different background and has worked with the board of nursing for regulations as well as workforce development. So why what we do matters. As Mr. Hull said, the role that you all play in the community is a vital role. I know for me personally, if I have a breakdown on the side of the road or wherever I happen to be and I have to call a phone service, you're my hero, you're my saving grace in that moment. But we also know that for so many non-consensual tows that you do, whether they're for, directed by law enforcement or moving something for public safety, you guys are helping to meet the public safety and the public health needs. You all provide a service that is extremely vital and important in our communities to keep our roads safe and our people properly transported. So, in that respect, I believe that you all are an extension of our law enforcement community, and I thank you for that. Thank you, thank you. We're also, as an agency, we're running an initiative, safety initiative called Heart at Zero. I'm sure that all of you guys have heard about an initiative called Vision Zero. It started in the Netherlands. It's had huge international success. Vision Zero is primarily a program that is best operated and managed at a local level, primarily by cities or counties, municipalities and counties. So we are not a Vision Zero protocol state. What we do though is we focus on Target Zero. And Target Zero is an initiative that works for driving towards zero deaths. It acknowledges that there are going to be crashes. It acknowledges that there are going to be accidents and that there are people who are going to be injured. We're trying to get to zero deaths. So it's looking at a bunch of different initiatives from a safety perspective. That includes road design, traffic mitigation activities, so that when you have a crash, the injuries are minimized, right? And you avoid death. So we are driven towards safety. And then, you know, for sure that as an agency, what we want to do is provide support to people. We don't want to just be the arm that comes down and says, hey, you did it wrong. We want to know that you all, you know, we want to make sure that you all know that we are a resource. When you have a question, and not this is an unusual circumstance, how do I know this? Or I've done this and I love it, and I love nothing better than to, every time I get a complaint about it, I'll carry it and say, I've heard that complaint before, and you're working with very well. Sorry if you feel like you're mistreated, if that's the case, you probably need an attorney or go to law enforcement or something. So we're also concerned about consumer protection, right? We want to make sure that people are not being taken advantage of. And we also want to support that. So those are different roles. So for the updates, there's some, these are the kind of highlight areas that I want to touch base on, compliance issues that we've seen over the last couple of years, especially around consolidation and where we're coming from with regards to that. I want to provide an overview of the types of codes that are identified in statute, primarily in our regulations. Because what we have seen when we're out responding to complaints or when we're doing inspections, and we're trying hard, like we're trying to work towards compliance and not enforcement heavily, we have concerns about federal operations. But there seems to be a lot of confusion or misapplication of the regulations of various types of codes. And so we want to make sure that we provide that information to you again, if something unusual comes up, and you're not sure exactly how to handle it, you'll be called. We all will be, really supportive. Well, I'll talk a little bit about law enforcement locations, which kind of ties in a little bit with those, consolidation laws, various types of codes. A little bit of an update on tariffs. So you're not going to be super happy with where we are, because I'm not super happy with where we are. I want to talk a little bit about the enforcement options that we have and how to apply in the field and what my office. A little bit about future training, legislation, because again, I don't think as far along as I hope that we would be 2 years down the road. Initially, when everything started to roll, I thought that a 3 to 5 year plan is about where we would be, in terms of getting our feet under ourselves, some of the challenges that we had, and we haven't gotten as far as I'd like us to go. But I think that we're finally now getting to the point of we definitely appreciate the outreach from your advocacy. And then talk just a little bit about the military responsibilities. Part of what I want to talk about for the Target Zero Target Zero focuses on when there is a crash, there is an injury or a death, that responsibility isn't just placed. Generally, people try to focus on all that car should be driving that fast. And really, it could be somebody stepped out in front of the car. They didn't process the crosswalk. They, maybe the city or the county or the highway department, whatever, didn't make sure that there were clear vision of lines of traffic. So it acknowledges that there are various points of responsibility when something like that happens, and making sure that it's shared, distributed appropriately across everybody. So the first compliance issue that I want to talk about is financial responsibility. This is not new. This has been in place since day one. And I understand the question that, I appreciate the question that you asked me when you went away, I didn't have a chance to see you earlier. It's really important. It's really important that you keep up with your insurance. And I will tell you that one of the challenges that we had when we moved over from PRC over to DOT is there was some documentation that PRC used, when we got 4K on something, basically letting us know that something's insurance is cancelled, expire at some point in the future. That 4K immediately triggered the notice that we go out to the military that we say, hey, we received this 4K, gonna expire on such and such date, days ahead. If we don't receive the new Form B that gives us proof that you have sufficient financial responsibility, then we will suspend you on that date. And it also includes a notice of revocation right after that. So it had the notice of Form A, notice of suspension if you don't get to Form B in time, and if you don't get that Form B in time, that's also in the drug trigger. So it's right in all of those notices. One of the challenges that we had is we didn't have legal staff that led to several months before that legal staff, and then took several months to get into kind of line with where we were. They didn't like having any documents and stuff like that. So we know that there's a period of time that we were not contacting people about those form cases. And so once we got into looking at those form cases, we're still sort of catching up. We are not holding any form of military responsible for the time that we did not notify them. From the point that we notified them forward is when we hold them responsible. So again, that's not just the bureaucracy, that's the bureaucracy with the heart. We want to be unfair, we want to be unjust, we want to give everybody benefit. Okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about. And it is military responsibility to work with the insurer to make sure that insurer uploads those Form Bs to our system, which is Tyler Technology, there's a specific website for that, an app, web-based app. But there's the notice of the Form A that will let people know that there's an expiration date pending, and what we need to do in order to avoid suspension. And then if we don't have that according to our statute of limitations, there's an immediate suspension without notice, without the possibility of a public hearing. As soon as that insurance is not on file with us, we have the authority to issue suspension on the spot. Once we got our act together, that's the process we're following. Again, for the people that fell in that previous category, we're putting them into the back. There's a certain part out in the regulation that gives warning to the motor carriers includes all of the tow industry, general commodities, other folks that get warrants, that can actually be 4 months, consecutive months without insurance before revocation. So that's, something to keep in mind. The other, compliance issue that I wanted to talk about is annual reports. This is not a new thing either. Annual reports have been required since day one, probably for all of you. They were an issue at the PRC that kind of carried over to us prior to the transition. The folks at the PRC identified X number of motor carriers that had to provide an annual report in like the last 3 or 5 years. They made a motion to the PRC to suspend all of those, motor carriers, so a lot of motor carriers were suspended, before the transition over. We have continued to have that problem. We are not getting annual reports. We knew that we didn't have the capacity to receive 5,000 annual reports for staff, hold on the system a little bit. We now have our feet under us a little bit more. We haven't really taken any enforcement action against anybody for not providing an annual report. We knew that we were going to do it anyway. Again, trying to give you all the benefits of that compared to you. But it's really important that you get us the annual reports. There's a format every year. It's available on our website. They are changed when we go from PRC to DOT. That annual report now is due on March 1st or before. Get your annual report in. I don't know how to tell you anymore. When you get an inspection out there, they'll tell you that they might ask you to order to cease and desist until you get your annual report in. They might give you 10 days to do that before they take that kind of action. There's complaint against you and then the investigation, not necessarily the inspection, and this comes up, that will also be identified, so get your annual reports in. It's really, really cool. The other thing that we're getting is a lot of complaints. We ask people to show us their records going back a certain amount of time, and we're finding that people's records are either very disorganized or they're incomplete. People are following all of the regulations correctly, and so it's really hard for us to either verify that the complainant is sane or to defend the motor carrier. And again, that's what I would love to do, is to be able to say, look at the documents, the motor carrier did everything that they needed to do, and sorry, I'm just letting you know. Workman's comp insurance. I don't know actually how frequently this is coming up. This is one of the issues, compliance issues that our operations group looks at on a regular basis. Make sure that your workers' comp is up to date. And we only verified child support enforcement for sole proprietors, because those are the only owners of the motor carrier that have to provide their social security number. And that social security number is the trigger for us to move over to child support enforcement to verify child support. We have not seen tons of folks pop up, but every once in a while somebody does. And that's just it's a state law that you cannot have any license in New Mexico or consideration your authority to do that type of license according to the legislative intent. And so that's the whole reason for having to reactivate the child. All right, the next issue is consolidation. And this comes 100%, these two books up here are our Bibles. This is our regulation. Right, this is our 65-2A is my tab for 65-2A. It runs from here, not a big portion of the section, just a few pages, but it has a lot of it. Right, so this is what guides when we're looking at what the motor carrier needs to do and whether or not they can. And this little binder, again, not many pages, although these are printed front and back. These are the regulations that apply to every motor carrier industry that we regulate. There are certain sections that I'll highlight for you a little bit, but those are the regulations that guide how you do your business, and that's what we verify against when we do inspection or investigation. So according to 65-2A-15, any motor carrier that has, I gotta read this, motor carrier that holds more than one certificate, and in this case, a certificate is also considered any authority, right? So it's a warrant, permit, or a certificate. Certificates are for companies that move people in general, except for general commodity, not for household goods. So people people and household goods have to have a certificate. Companies that move things, like tow companies, general commodities, and the things that we determined that, bodies, funeral services fall under, commodities, body health. So anybody that has more than one certificate for the same kind and nature of certificated service in the same territory shall file an application to consolidate its operating authorities. That's the statutory language. It's been there for a very long time. It hasn't changed in years. And then the second paragraph POC, is the department shall not grant any new operating authority to a local carrier that duplicates the operating authority at the same time in the same territory identified by that local carrier. So those are really key to us. What we have learned is that over the years, companies had, local carriers might have had 2, 3, 4 companies all providing service in the same area. Maybe they had the same owners listed, maybe it's a familiar connection. But they wanted to do that so they could be on the law enforcement rotation more than once. And again, when we're trying to look at equity and fairness across the board, in some cases that might give one motor carrier an advantage or somebody else a disadvantage. What we have learned is that we have zero control over law enforcement locations, and that law enforcement doesn't care. So if you had, let's say I had Alicia's towing, AO's towing, and ACO's towing under the GOC. I had all 3 towing companies. I needed to consolidate all 3 of those into one. I could make the main company any one of those 3. I could make an ACO towing and then still have one warrant number, and under that same warrant number, I could have ACO's towing, DBA, AO towing, DBA, and ACO's towing. They would all have to have the same warrant number identified on the side of the vehicle, but I can use all of those on a law enforcement location. All 3 would show up. I don't know if it's sequential order or not, but that's what we use for it. So that's a concern that people have about consolidating any businesses that they own that I don't think is anymore. And then the other thing to point out at 65-212 is that any companies that are providing non-consensual tows can't share vehicles, equipment, or facilities. That's really, again, creates an unfair advantage. Thank you. All right. Towing, 2 types of tows. I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody, but if you need to look at the regulations, it's in there at 18, 12, 14. Consensual tow is, I broke down on the side of the road, I want to move my car that I'm working on from my mom's house to my grandma's house, from one lot to another, I have the ability to answer, to shop, the marketplace to see who provides the best service and the best rate. That's a consensual tow. Prior to 25. I just find whatever price I'm comfortable with, that's what. Then there are non-consensual tows. Non-consensual tows do require a tariff. Either the statewide tariff, which a motor carrier has to say that they're going to abide by the statewide tariff, that's off on that application, or companies that you know apply for their own tariff. And at the PRC, they have an economist on staff that can do those tariffs. We have like the joint powers agreement with the PRC to leave those out. We don't have an economist on staff or economists at PRC or focused on other things at the moment. And we are not the primary responsibility at PRC. So we have sent things over, and sometimes we do timely, sometimes we don't, but it takes time to put these priorities. So the non-consensual tows, the first one is what most people are familiar with are the by direct. That's the law enforcement location, law enforcement agency. We have one company that we learned an awful lot from. We're really grateful that we're learning from them. They didn't reach out to us ahead of time, so we're trying to figure out the nuance and getting into the agency. So the non-consensual tow by directive, even if somebody gets in a crash, right, and the person's car is totaled, but they are not injured, they're fine, they make a decision, tow company shows up and they say, we're gonna take your car and we'll pay for that. And the customer says yes. That doesn't make it a consensual tow. That's still a tow by directive, because once it's directed by law enforcement, it's directed by law enforcement. So the statute and regulations are very, very clear that it remains directed regardless of whether the owner or operator of the vehicle is intending to tow, but it is directed by law enforcement. And it shouldn't be as it should be. Second type of non-consensual tow is necessary for public safety, so that's a vehicle that crashed or died or lit on fire or whatever, it's too close to the roadway, it just needs to be moved so that it makes it safe. There are requirements in the regulations that should be, ordered within a couple of hours or 30 minutes or something like that from law enforcement. But even if law enforcement isn't available, the tow company has the authority to do that, but just as far as to take it out of the public, way to raise it. And then, of course, trespass zones. The majority of complaints that we get at TRB are about your industry. I think it represents somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or 60%. And the majority of those complaints are about primarily private property. So the third type of non-consensual tow are trespass. Private property in town, they mostly are the complaints that mostly get are from people who live in apartment complexes that are having their vehicles towed. So there are some complexities and some weirdness around that kind of thing. So by directive, one of the things that we found is that there are some cities and counties, and that includes their individual like planning and zoning commissions or something like that, that consider they have ordinances that make it clear that they consider themselves a law enforcement function. So I would have never thought of that. I always thought of sheriff's deputy, but that's been determined that they are conventional law enforcement. So as such, they have the ability to issue non-consensual tow directives. And so as a tow company, if they reach out to you and say, hey, I'm willing to pay you $5,000 to these 20 cars from here, or these 50 cars need to be moved, I'll give you 100 for this type of car, 20 for this type of car. Absolutely, absolutely, rock on. They can choose whatever they want, if they have the issue with their procurement, they're not involved at all. Our recommendation, and you all may want to consider if you get a vote or something like that, is that you consider asking that governmental entity for their permission to work with their local law enforcement to make the tow authorization the same as you would by law enforcement. And all of those requirements for directed tow still apply. You can't all of a sudden say, well, because I'm moving it from somebody's private property, becomes private property, and can't do that. It still has to be directed. And all of those regulations apply to every single vehicle. You can't just take one vehicle and say, I'm relying on this piece of paper for tow authorization and that. You might be able to, but you still need to have a list of your vehicles that you tow. You can have a list of inventory of all of the things that apply to that directive. Again, the law enforcement locations, you don't have authority, every law enforcement agency has its own rules, how to get on their location, how to use their generally, and I talk to the law enforcement agencies, generally, the tow company on location, if they get a call and have to accept that call for any reason, they have to actually comply. They can't just say, oh, I can't do this, but I'm going to call so-and-so, and so-and-so will go into the tow. I think that what I've heard from law enforcement agencies is there's like an agreement or a contract that they have, and you all sign off on it, whenever you sign it. And again, law enforcement is very well, very sophisticated. All right, tariffs. We know one of the first things that PRC told us as we were preparing for the country with PRC is that the tariffs were outdated and constructive. We agree 1,000,000%. 2017 to 2026 is a very long time. And so we are working for an economist. We want two projects. We want one that will actually look at the statewide tariff and help us revise that. And I think that Mr. Gold was talking about because those tariffs remain relevant to the industry, right? So the only industries that have statewide tariffs are home services or record services or non-consensual tows and an ambulance, industry. The ambulance industry has been really clear that what they would like to do is, stick with Medicaid rate, reimbursement rate. And I think that we're okay with that. We've got legal advice though to not formalize that until are able to talk to Congress. Part of the reason why we're here now, actually, your advocacy group, the Alliance, reached out to us very, very early on, why they would like to use the types of tariffs that they recommend. Since even before then, we have been trying really, really hard to find new companies that want to do our tariffs, and we are having a heck of a time. We actually put out, contacted several economists that we know that they can do that for. We talked to them, we talked to the university, we talked to the college in Santa Fe. We put out an RFP, and we gave them an opportunity to bid on providing the service. We got 0 bids, it's out there for 18 to 15 days, something like that. So we're having a really hard time. We want them to focus on statewide tariffs and be available on all bases as a tariff change applications. To review those to make sure that we're doing the right thing. We definitely want to have public meetings, and this is really the end of it. I think that's one of the things about it, is that we don't want this to stay to be controlled, we want to be an ongoing dialogue and conversation. So when we are able to get to the conference, we're really excited to do. The conversation won't be done in the vacuum. It's not a decision that we make by ourselves. We will include a lot of voices. We actually, in addition to the Alliance, there are a number of more carriers who have requested tariffs, and then we've had a number of conversations in different ways, and so questions that come up related to those are will be built into the conversations that we have. So we're sure that we can get to that. We want to also review our industry trends and looking at some of the states. I think our group has been really impressed with the Colorado. And I know that because there's so much of the activity that we have down in the southern part of the state, we want to move to Texas. And there are a bunch of different varieties that we want to take into consideration, like urban versus rural. And right now, we know that gas prices are very high, but what happens when gas prices go down, how dynamic these tariffs are going to be. I want to talk a little bit about how frequently we update them. Because I can go from 2017 to 2026, that's just entirely too long. So maybe having it reviewed every 3 years, every 5 years, maybe have an increase by a certain percentage every year, something like that, so that you guys aren't just stuck with something that's antiquated. Some of the things that we're talking about and looking at, we know that there are a number of motor carriers that are assessing what they call drop fees, and that those are not allowed to stay that way. I think that there were conversations with PRC prior to the transition over, but not one of those that we have to do those. Again, in this case, we're looking primarily at as well as making sure that you all have the resources we need to provide the service that we provide. The drop fees are probably more relevant to private property impacts than to other types of non-residential proposals. So you want to make sure that you guys are not getting very short. We know that admin fees are something that is coming up in every single conversation that we've had about tariffs. And so I think I've seen some recommendations anywhere from $35 plus actual cost, increasing that to 50, maybe 100, maybe even 200. I've seen some recommendations or some applications that have a registration cost for Class A B is slightly higher cost for Class C, is the higher cost for Class D. I don't understand it because I'm not in the field, I'm not in your offices. I don't understand why there would be a difference in the paperwork that you do based on the right? It's really the service that you provide. So tell me, and if it makes sense to me, rock on. There's something else that keeps showing up on a bunch of applications about admin fee for the first 5 days versus the second 5 days or 5 days and on. And I don't understand that.
That's because before 5 days, you don't send it back, after 5 days, you have to send it back.
Okay, so let me look at that, because I don't see that in our regulations. What,
So making that,
was that?
so if it comes in the first 2 days, you have to send it. So it's the difference, 5 days.
Well, the regulation is actually pretty clear, right, that you have up to 5 days to notify the vehicle owner and removal. You have certain number of days to request the information to MPD. And then from the moment that you receive that information, you have additional time, an additional 2 or 3 days to actually send it out. So we'll have to have more communication, make sure that either I understand what you guys are saying, or that you clarify what your understanding is. Right now, I don't know if it's my misunderstanding or if it's misunderstanding, but we can get to that point, so that I understand it right. And there's also the whole thing where it's a certain amount plus additional costs that we have to receive. So I just want to make sure that we're not, again, consumer protection. Law enforcement isn't paying for it, the state isn't paying for it, it's that person who's being told, we're dealing with a bunch of other stuff at the same time. So I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. A lot of folks have started to talk about on-route fees, and I just, we don't have that available in the statute right now, or regulation, or the tariff list. So it's simply, it's not something that we had ever contemplated in this 2-year period. I'm just going to put it out for everybody and leave the elephant in the room. In the 2-year transition period, we approved 2 tariffs that had on-route, and we shouldn't have. We now are taking action to make sure it's correct. We have a third person that even after we determined that on-route shouldn't be approved, that was approved, and it shouldn't have miscommunication on like. We are not closed off to this at some point in the future, but right now, until we're able to actually revise that statewide tariff and that whole breakdown of allowable costs, it's just not something that we can afford. And then clean up fees, because the regulations really clear that that's just kind of responsibility of yes, sir.
The original tariff does have on-route fees, it's a deadhead.
No, that's totally different. Deadhead,
Not deadhead, it's two different.
there are 2 different things. As I understand it, on route is the mileage that you're charging without a vehicle on it to get to the site, right, to actually conduct the tow. Deadhead is if you go to pick up a vehicle and instead of taking it either to a law enforcement impound lot or to your storage yard, the owner of the vehicle has asked you to take it someplace else. So when you drop it off at someplace else, the deadhead is from that area back to their facility. Or the difference between that.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
I know, some of the companies up here, like, now, for me, saying they have their sections off of their non-consensual law enforcement tows. You guys have like 5 miles in route. Where we're at, in the county and city and state, we live in Chavez. I mean, some of our routes over 60 to 90 miles.
We understand.
Yeah, and I'd just like you to consider that.
Yeah, we do. Thank you. That's exactly what we're
Well, I
talking about. It'll make a big difference. Like, that's why the whole question about urban versus rural.
Yes,
Because the effort to get, and what we've heard from a lot of people is that sometimes law enforcement will call, it's a big crash. I don't know, however many vehicles, and instead of just calling 1 or 2 tow companies, they'll call 3 or 4.
yes.
They don't know who can respond, and all of a sudden, everybody's there, and there's a fight over who actually has jurisdiction. And yeah, if you drive 60 miles to get somewhere, and then you just end up without a vehicle to tow.
But even if we go 60 miles in route, I mean, we're still eating all that fuel. Going out there, even if we get the tow.
60 over and 60 back, we get it.
Yeah.
So that's part of why we want to engage in the comments, because we want, because there will be differences between urban and rural. Like in close times that there. No, okay. Right. Thank you. These are exactly why we want to have these conversations. We're hearing it on a like one-off, if we're looking at individual applicants or individual motor carriers, but the more voices we hear together. Anything else? Thank you for stopping me and asking the question. That's perfect. All right. Okay. So the last one was cleanup fees.
Cleanup, okay.
Yeah.
So on the cleanup, are you talking like, talking about police calls for the most part after we do cleanup? Sometimes, yeah, no, it's our responsibility to clean up, but sometimes you get there and it's normal cleanup. Sometimes you get there and parts of the car from here to the parking lot. That's where that fee comes in,
Okay.
because it's more physical work for us to clean up the whole road. If I just have to do a little cleanup, that goes with the tow, we get that. But when you have a lot of cleanup, I mean, I've been on accidents by myself, 45+ minutes, picking up hard parts personally, you know, that's a lot of time,
Perfect.
and that's what we charge for.
Again, this is exactly what I'm here, so make sure that
Just-
we
And,
have.
and, you know, most of us know the difference between like extra cleanup, basic cleanup.
Who doesn't know the difference, like, in fire trucks, right? Because they don't, you do it all day, every day. They do
Yeah.
it Hopefully once in a lifetime.
Especially like campers, because the camper, it'll never stay together, it'll always pull up, but it's always just cleanup on a camper.
Yeah.
Not just pick up the camper and go,
So I
it's
get it.
all cleanup.
Perfect. These will definitely add to the conversation. Yeah. All right,
Right.
the other thing that, our team wanted to make sure that you're, especially when you're applying for a new tariff, don't just propose your rates. There are terms that are associated with the tariffs, right? And it has to do with like that hazardous cleanup, the bottom fuel, and all that stuff. All of that is taken into consideration. So just keep that in mind. We already talked about this, but you can't change it from the directed code to consensual code, even if the owner of the vehicle is example.
Can I just clarify that?
Yeah.
I understand that. So I go to a police call, she decides she wants to go to her house, it's still a police call, whether it goes to her house or it goes to the yard. You can't change it to, like, that's what you mean by that.
Yes, and what we have seen this happen.
Where they're like, oh, now I can charge more because it's,
Exactly,
yeah.
instead of 250, I'm charging.
Because you responded to the police.
Exactly.
So the call remains a police call or whatever consent, non-consensual setup it is for the whole entire event call, whether it goes to the dealership, the house, whatever, it's still, you have that sheet.
Exactly. Once it's a directed, it's correct.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm sure that you all have heard that we came in guns blazing. We are hitting people hard, we're making statements. Some of the carriers are the proverbial coyote right over the fence. What I will say is this. So PRC didn't, quote unquote, lose transportation. It's not that they were doing a bad job, they took it away from them and took it over to the DOT. The PRC for many years was working on, well, originally they started out as a public utility commission, right, a PUC. That was probably 92, 93 is when it started to shift and more things got added to them. So over probably the last 10 or 12 years, a little at a time, we've taken away the programs that don't have anything to do with public utilities or pipeline. So I think the first program that got moved out of PRC was superintendent of insurance. They used to be housed there, they created their own state agency, office of superintendent. The second thing that got moved, I think, was the corporation commission, and that was the Secretary of State's office. The third thing that got taken out of PRC was the state fire marshal, and they got moved to New Mexico Department of Homeland Security. So the fourth program that they had that didn't have anything to do with utilities or pipeline transportation. And that's why they moved it statutorily. So they didn't lose it, they weren't doing a bad job. But also keep in mind that that was the four programs that didn't have anything to do with what they considered the priority. So I think that transportation didn't necessarily get all of the support and funding that it had enjoyed at different times, if ever. And so a lot of their activity was not on inspections. Exactly what Mr. Cole was talking about. We need to come out and help people make sure they're doing it right and giving them support. And the majority of their inspection and investigation money was going towards investigation. And at that point, it's 100%. I've gotten 15 people calling me, telling me that they're doing business. And everybody did the same thing, so now we're doing something more than that. Then the pandemic hit, and that activity slowed down even more. So there was probably a period of 6-7 years where that inspection support probably wasn't available and was primarily focused on investigation, and then that kind of went away. So when activity started to pick up again, when we got over to DOT, there were for sure a couple of cases that were pending in PRC that carried over to DOT that we were finalizing on. And we came out with the PRC that's high penalty enforcements and suspensions and revocation. But imagine what your kids do when there's not a babysitter. And I don't mean to demean, I don't mean to diminish anything, but when there's nobody watching, it's easy to cut a corner or to not do this or not do that, because nobody's coming to check. And so it sort of feels like when you run out there, it's that like the wildfire. And then we did find some things that we wanted to make sure that we got people's attention on. And we're also still kind of trying to figure out how to balance, egregious, enforcement actions, right, or violations of non-compliance. What is truly safety oriented? Driving with only 3 tires on your truck, putting people in jeopardy. Your folks and other people on the highway, we're not having brakes. We're not having your drivers on, random drug testing. Not having you point out your responsibility coming to you as you do this. The regulations are very clear that somebody refuses to cooperate in an inspection or investigation, whether it is access to any portion of your business operations or your records, is obstructing and inhibiting the investigation or inspection, and leads to safety risk, and so subject to immediate suspension. So there are things that have different levels of probably severity. And so we're trying to figure out how to assess penalties based on, so I didn't have the tariff note in my office, it's very good to not have insurance. But, a lot of the findings that we have, I would much rather you hear it from us and pay a $3,000 fine than have trash and pay out millions of dollars for that litigious state that, Amy and Mr. Hall were talking about, right? So that's kind of where we're coming from with this. So we have several enforcement options. Our number one priority is compliance. When we're doing inspections and investigations, we're focusing on compliance and safety. That private zero or private zero. So we have several things that we can do in the field. We have some other things that we can do in cities that are unresolved non-compliance. And then we can also do suspensions, revocations, assess penalties, and if we don't find something in somebody just keep blowing us off, we can ultimately file criminal civil penalties in court. We don't have the authority to issue citations, but we can definitely do petitions in court. So in the field, when an inspector, an investigation is out there, an inspection or an investigation, and they find some problem with either a vehicle and or a driver, rather than impact your overall operations and say, we're putting you out of service right now, and we can't do it out of service. We're shutting you down right now, even temporarily. We don't want to do that. If we can address a specific vehicle or a specific driver, we will issue a red tag for that driver or drivers or vehicle, and that way your other operations can be going, you can put money, you can provide services to the community, you can continue operating. So that will only impact the specific vehicle or driver, it doesn't prevent you from your operations, and that is a impact until the non-compliant issue is resolved. And usually a red tag will say, we give you 5 days, 10 days, however many period of time to resolve those issues. Then, if we give you time to resolve those issues, and you're just not doing it, you're just not doing it, you're just not doing it, then you have the ability to issue a cease and desist order. The regulations also give us, the ability to issue a cease and desist order, failure to, participate in inspection or investigation, especially if you're using your risk of safety, and that's immediate for all of your operations. And then it prevents military from operating and staying in effect until non-compliant issues are resolved. So we can also do this if we find that there's just something with the overall operations, like you don't have any drug alcohol testing driver, or there's some other, that's the primary that you see in the so far. That's the next level. So, and a red tag doesn't always go to the cease and desist. We started with the cease and desist. Think about the discipline with the employees or whatever, this is kind of process. Then we have the ability to suspend. And we can do that immediately without notice before a public hearing. And the only reason why we do a public hearing is if we give somebody notice that we intend to take an action, that triggers a 30-day period that order period can request a hearing. If a hearing is requested, then and the hearing officer grants the premise that it's appropriate, then we'll hold a hearing. That's the only time that's typically necessary, so that's what is necessary. And then, if somebody makes a complaint to us, or we have found some issue that we have to remove barrier, we can take our own initiative as a department, and then we would have to provide a notice of intent to do something. And then if hearing is required, I will give you, but if you fail to comply with any requirement of the Motor Carrier Act, which is the statute, or any of the rules of the department, so these are the rules of the department, or an order. And there has been some discussion, and, I think we've landed on an order from our hearing examiner, or an order from the secretary to issue an order, but the secretary is delegating that authority to me. So if you fail to comply with the order from me, or the department, you can also do, suspension action. Or you can fail to comply with the term of service, if you're operating authority, or with the tariff. Or, the reasonably continuous and adequate service primarily, refers to like ambulance. If you're not continuously readily available to use private service. After being suspended, you want to get reinstated, there's a reinstatement fee, we have to provide proof of compliance, submit the application, and the fee. And just do one thing that is done, or do, get to more. Then the next level is revocation. And with revocation, you can't simply do it, you're going to have to actually apply for reporting again, because you're a Mexico member. And so revocation falls in, like I said earlier, for warranted holders who have gone 4 consecutive months without financial responsibility. We also, this is, this language that was in the last section for suspension comes from 65 to 27. So that's if not complying with the Military Act rules, orders, terms of service, or active. Again, comes with the application fee, you have to remember, and you can't just reinstate that, you have to actually on that. We also have the ability to issue penalties, like I said, according to the statute of 65-32. We can assess penalties up to $10,000 per violation per day. And it's really hard for us to know exactly what that is, unless we come in and look at all the work that every code we do. It's easiest for us to tell, non-consensual rules. We can look at the dispatch log, we can look at crash reports, we can look at the recommending officers also files a report. So we can look at those. It's not so easy for us to do that. We're, like I said earlier, we're looking to standardize those penalties for violations, that $10,000 per penalty per day, for example, if somebody didn't have financial responsibility, they deducted 10 toes over a 2-day period. This basically can assess $10,000, $100,000. So we'll try to figure out how to, standardize this and go across, different workers. And again, we are unable to, reach these, agreements and get resolution, we have the ability to pursue criminal and civil penalties. There was a question at one point about whether or not these regulations apply to consensual and non-consensual tows. And I think that there was an interpretation at the PRC that these kind of, rely primarily or apply primarily to consensual tows, non-consensual tows. But we have made the determination that they apply to every single type of, unless there's a paragraph or a language that says for a non-consensual tow, then that would apply only to non-consensual tows and not to consensual, but everything else as a whole, because there are safety requirements in chapter 12, right, in 18 to 12. That's the section that applies specifically to tows. That has to do with safety of vehicles, safety of your drivers, how you can, what equipment you need to have, the fact that you use a Class C piece of equipment to respond to a Class C tow, but if it only requires a Class C, you can only charge Class C rates, right? So that those are the kinds of things that will apply to us. So now, training resources and legislation. Unfortunately, we do not have a lot of training resources to offer you at our staff hasn't been there, we're on the cusp of hiring 2 new people that are, going to be tasked with developing training materials and things that you can have in your vehicles, like cat cards and things like that, to know who contact and that sort of things, or putting out consumer rights that we can post on the website, or to advise the website. When we move from PRC over to DOT, pretty much just took the PRC website, labeled it into the DOT website, and we know that we need to do some fine tuning, we just haven't had the staff to do that. So, in the meantime, your alliance staff group has reached out to us, talked with us about developing training, each type of work very regularly. And, so we will work with them on that. We will be final, this is just on the content of that training, but I think it will serve the industry well. And then, as we're filling vacancies and stuff, we're going to. The resources that you have on our TRB website, you can access the statutes and the regulations. That's all we do. Go to the website and print these, and we are all over this. You can do that very easily. I think that we shared with the group. I don't know how or who to distribute it. It's on the table. So on the table, we shared with you some inspection checklists. We need templates of what our red tags look like both for vehicles and for drivers, as well as the template for in order to cease and desist. And of course, now you have all the contact information for everybody on our team to provide any technical assistance at any time. Our office hours, by the way, are 7:45 to 4:30. So you are on at 4:45 or close to 5 o'clock. You will often get me because I'm often in the office later than 7:45 and later than 4:30. But for the most part, our team is on the. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of legislative ideas that we have. We definitely shared this with our cabinet secretary. It's been shared with the current governor's administration, and so it will be shared with the incoming administration. At this point, I don't know at what priority they are within the DOT's overall legislative packet, but a couple of things that we recommend is pre-authorization training for every new motor vehicle. So once you get the application, you know that it's complete, and maybe post a notice in that 20-day period that we're waiting for an application to notice that that's the case for ones that don't have to have notice. We would go through the pre-training, and then once that checkbox is marked, then we'll be able to issue the warrant, and we'll cover all of the statutes and regulations, requirements are for the motor carrier. Again, that's something that the Alliance develops. The model that we have for similar activity at MED is that members of the Alliance will pay a certain fee, and non-members would still have to training and use that resource. But available for the third. And for pre-authorization training, what we're thinking about for so many motor carriers that have been in business for 15, 20, 25 years. Sometimes we're still getting email, well, this is what the PRC told me in 1987. Well, shoot, that's older than the tariff. And I can guarantee that the statutes and the regulations and interpretations have changed many times. And so we would ask every existing motor carrier to follow this pre-authorization training, also just so that everybody is familiar with what we are from day one. And then we would propose continuing the education training. How frequently do dealers have to go every 2 years? So we might say every 2 years, every 3 years, I'm not sure, but again, we can talk with you all to determine what is the best for the industry. And then we're also considering mandating that there would be using software that would enable consumers, non-consensually to know who told it and where it's going. That's one of the reasons that they will know who told the vehicle and who to call and where it is. And so, people can have that. I think some law enforcement agencies encourage something like that. And finally, I just want to talk a little bit about your responsibilities. I have heard from a number of motor carriers, especially when they're complaining about tactics with language or the approach that one of our investigators have used. basically saying, you guys don't even have any training materials. You haven't given us a copy of the regulations. We don't know what you're doing. And ultimately, it's your responsibility as a military to know what's in the statute and the regulation. And just a reminder to all of you, this is something we have had to do. Enforcement action, is that we remind folks that every application, even if you did it 30 years ago, which is why we need to go through the authorization. We talked about the code. In every single file, there's an old applicant that says, one of them says, I certify upon approval to operate. This business will submit all required documentation including the code. I can't tell you, it's a really small percentage of companies that are submitting and their policies. Another one of the bulleted documents is a right square firm that I have read and understood the Motor Carrier Act, the Black Book, and the associated motor carrier rules, and agree on pathways to operate compliance with all of the federal, and we have adopted by reference to a lot of federal law, but also state laws. So we know that we have authority over the actual toll. What we frequently get is complaints from people saying, well, they told my vehicle and after only 15 days, they sold it. I don't have any control over that MPD process, right? Or taking ownership of the vehicle and auctioning it itself. But you agree to abide by all state laws. And you can take action not abide by all state laws. You don't have to that's when we talk about pitch streets and everything, I have to be responsible for how we're doing the street and the role. This is part of the role in managing the business, responsibility. So the Motor Carrier Act, like I said, 528, 1978, and the same, that's available as a link on our website. The link goes directly to the State Record Center and Archives, and that's the official regulation of statute book for the state. There are a bunch of other sources, like Constitution and resource and all kinds of stuff. If you go through our website, it goes right to the official website. And the motor carrier rules are in here, and the rules that I really want to point out very clearly. So, part 12, first specifically told you, okay, all the operations are covered. But other provisions apply to every motor carrier, including toll. Those are our general provisions at part 1. Our operating authority for part 2, financial responsibility, safety requirements, fees and penalties, and the penalties don't have anything to do with the sense of enforcement action. The penalties that we have to do are reinstated for that. So it's one page to have all of those. The rules that apply to tariffs and the rules that apply to reports, records, and accounts. Yet you have to keep your records in for 3 years. So, important that we're able to do those. And I definitely want to point this out. Try to add language at the end of every enforcement action notice that we take. Remind you that you have rights. If you don't agree with an action that we're proposing to take, you have the right at any time to request a hearing. And this particular paragraph of Title 18, Chapter 9, Section 1A, Paragraph B, once sets the time frames. So when you get an application for a certificate, for example, or what applies to you guys, a change in tariff, once we get that and we determine that it's complete, we'll notice it, and then that triggers a 19-day period for somebody to contest that or to protest it. And when we're proposing any kind of action with the motor carrier, good, bad, or otherwise, the motor carrier, once they receive that notice, has 30 days, calendar days, they're all calendar days, to request a hearing from our hearing examiner. The hearing examiner is a DOT employee, but it's a part of the agency that doesn't interact with us on a day-to-day basis at all. The only times that I ever see our hearing examiner is when we have state like CPR or like just to say hi. But we don't ever discuss individual cases, and they're very independent office, very clearly separated. And then there's even further separation from the office of the secretary, because once the hearing examiner makes a determination, the next level of arbitration is the cabinet secretary, and so we try to make sure the cabinet secretary is able to be independent of the in order to carry out these constituents, their due process. So we're, very interested in the two to ensure that all of the guys have the due process. And that's it. It's a lot of information, and that is the proverbial tip of the iceberg. We do so much more, and you guys are responsible for so much more. I can't tell you how important it is to be familiar with the rules and the regulations. Typically, when somebody comes to the hearing examiner or anything, one of the first things that she asks is if there's an attorney, because these are they're not easy, they're complex, and I don't, as much as I think I know these things, I also rely on the legal team. We want to make sure that you guys have all of your rights. Thank you. I'm open to any
Great job, Alicia, thank you very much. So a couple things. When the PRC was being taken, transitioned over to the DOT, you had a rulemaking process, which was a public meeting. And that is kind of where the association was formed, because several of us tow companies were in the room submitting suggestions to those rules. And I know that you had to get your feet underneath you, but none of these rules that the towing services in that room have been addressed. Do you know that when these rulemaking, suggestions might be addressed in the future?
So as I understand it, all of those suggestions were taken into consideration prior to publishing the final report. And we have all of those on record still, as we've gone through the last couple of years, we have identified additional changes that we want to make to the rule. So I don't think that they have not been addressed, I think we've opted not to have them up. Does that make sense?
Yes, okay. I would still like, a seat at the table when we're having a discussion. So we debate back and forth, because at that rulemaking process, we were only allowed to present, we weren't allowed to debate or explain. So I think there needs to be a seat at the table so that we can hear both sides, why you're rejecting and why we need this change in the industry. So, but that's good. I just, there's a lot on the table.
Absolutely, and I think the way for us to handle that, going forward, that's the standard rulemaking process, is that we're just there to receive comments, and then any agency, this is not the first rulemaking process that I've changed, that I've and so that is not an opportunity for dialogue and discussion. So prior to getting to the rulemaking, we would then have that conversation, like now hearing some of the things that we're talking about, rules, urban, on-route, and be able to fully understand it and all of those. That's like to have that program.
Perfect. And then the first time I met you face to face was at legislation when I presented the bill to make an advisory committee. And we know that that passed with an additional co-signer for the transportation committee. It just never got heard in the committees for the agenda. Do you know if that bill is going to be presented again in January? Is there anything that I can do to make sure that that bill is heard? Then we can make sure that we, press forward with the industry representing an advisory at the committee.
So here's what I would say to that. And anything that I say today is not the be all and all. Like, I'm not just like, no. My preference would be that legislation not be service. The issues that I had with that legislation is that it created a separate arm of like oversight that should be contained in an agency. Because I think that what that did is it created an oversight committee that would help like navigate complaints, which could potentially put one competitor at odds with another competitor, or put one tow company able to make decisions about other tow companies and make sure that they're doing it. On the one hand, I can understand that definitely look like some people in the community who understands the issues, really trying to support their competitor, but it can also be used in a way to diminish that. I think I'm 150 million% in support of having the association, so that you have a common voice. You have these kinds of conversations, you decide on what your priorities are, if you want to bring to the department a million times. I think that the collaboration and the ongoing work with the Mexico and the auto industry alliance is, for me, a much preferable way to work, because they can also advocate on your behalf. And where I'm coming from with that is we have a very, very positive working relationship with them and our relationship that has led to excellent policy decisions, excellent support for the industry without it being confrontational or adversarial. And so I think that where you are as an association is really ideal place to be. And it gives me a lot of comfort coming from the department, knowing what my approach is to dealing with the industry and the association and advocacy group. I know that I'm pretty across the board, and that not everybody is necessarily open to this and having that conversation. None of you guys know me. You really don't, other than a few minutes there and a few minutes here. You don't know me. Some of the folks from the Alliance have had experience with me and the approach that I take. And we truly are the people voice. The process, the people that I think about. We do not want to do it again. It's going to be our business for the time. And the approach that I take, and I say that with your practical heart, when I make a decision or a recommendation for a policy, I once told somebody, do what you think you would do for your mom. And this person said, why did I talk to my mom? I mean, my mom. So I had to change that, and I said, think about what you do for the person that you love most. Right? And so when I'm making a policy recommendation, I'm thinking my 81-year-old mom in my mind. My 18-year-old niece is here with me, who's driving with me a while. So I'm making decisions that I think will help her at that stage. And I have a 2-year-old nephew, right? And I'm whatever age I am. So my contemporaries, that's what I'm really trying to get to. And so I know that not everybody's like that. And I think that when we put something in place that has that potential for adversarial, it sets up. I think it's coming from a good place, good intention, good idea, and good thought. I just really feel. So I'm not saying don't bring it. I'm just saying that if it comes to the legislature, again, that's.
And I would like to reiterate, from somebody that came from State Corporation Commission to Public Regulation Commission to now the New Mexico DOT, I will say the relationship is better than it has ever been. So there's no doubt about that. I have one more question. So, the previous director of the Alliance, we did a test on me, using an example for the test of tariff submission. And what we did in that test was bring it up to standards to meet the pilot program that allows for 90,000 pounds. And so in that, when I submitted for that rate change, I also submitted some definitions to update up to our standards and all of that. And I know it got rejected because of those additions, and I had to go back to the way it is, just change rates only. Do you think any of that is going to be considered in the future, those definitions on the tariff? And do you think we're ever going to be able to match with the 90,000 pound pilot program that the state has put in place right now?
All of that is 100% positive. Nothing is dead. Definitely open to all of those things. Our only setback right now is not being able to get an economist. And it's the, it's the years, other than that was great that you shared with me, contact on Wednesday or Thursday, I guess. For us to reach out again, I'm busy yesterday, I have an opportunity to do that, but I want to think more than office on Monday. Because we know that you guys are at a disadvantage. In fact, we've actually heard that a couple of law enforcement agencies are basically saying it doesn't matter what the DOT has approved their new revised tariff, we're holding it to the state right there. I don't know, I haven't heard that from the law enforcement office directly. But that's certainly a conversation we'll have with them, and we're happy to control those recommendations. They can make that decision themselves, but, we're going to hopefully call that all, and it'll be round meetings like this, we won't just call, we will probably go out to each of the 6 districts for the, and like, our business from there, the public, who, we have contracts with some of you guys, or consumers who use your services that might not have. That for sure, all of them. None of that wrong. Thank you for asking the question. And thank you for the comment about the relationship, because that's really one of the things that I really want to really push for us, is making sure that we have, open and honest dialogue, and that's where we want to be. When one of our investigators shows up, we want guys to feel like we have to do a lot of you. We want to bring the, you guys are safe. A lot of what we do is to make sure that we don't get to, or there's a shovel or something, there's a crash, and somebody comes back and says, how do you do it? It's always in the focus. Thank you all for the invitation, for your attention, for your excellent questions, and for the.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I want to recognize Amy Barella, who's the president of the New Mexico Towing and Recovery Association, and also sits on the NMAIA board as the towing representative for the committee. So this is going to be a call to action. If those of you that want to get involved with having a voice, please visit Ms. Barella and get your name on that committee. So thank you again, Alicia, on behalf of the association and everybody here in this room. I know it was a lot of information, valuable information. I hope everybody's taking a lot of that with you. And if you have questions, she shared all of her contact information. She will be sharing this PowerPoint presentation. We will be sharing it with all here. So we are also recording the session. So for those that could not attend in person, we will have it on the website. Last and not least, we are going to welcome Upendra from GovTo to speak on technology that is increasingly playing a big role in the industry. So welcome.
Thank you all. Very hard for us to perform legislative and some of the executive branch will be before the end. But we are here with technical people. We don't want to refer you to that. But we want you to ask us questions on our experience that we have been dealing with and going like that. Saying that, myself, and my colleague Sedivas, we both come from the company that do international products, laptop and record. And we both are from Texas. We are from Houston, Texas. In that area. I heard a lot of comments on compliance. I heard a lot of comments on enforcement. And I would stress on safety, efficiency, equity, and engagement or collaboration. And that's what our tool is, and that's what we have been talking about. And my colleague and I will go back in and we'll answer you any questions you may have within our experience, what we can answer you what we have seen. And if we do not have the answers, we'll get back to you. Well, saying that, I thank you, the Alliance and the DOT to give us this opportunity to come and speak to you all. And go to the next slide. Our agenda, we would like to talk about who we are. Without telling you who we are, it's very difficult to get into that. What is our solution, what and how we can help the Alliance, the DOT, and they are going to the next. Then, we'll talk about specific to the state of New Mexico, and then answer your questions that you have. With that one, with this, what I'm talking about, we want to make it an interactive session. So if you have any questions, please fire away, ask. That's how we get to know from other women. We try to address your questions and answers. Next one, as a company, we have been in operation for over 40 years. Back in the towing industry, we have been working in the last 15 years. We started out with city of Houston, understanding the towing business, and now we rapidly are the leading company in the country to provide you with best practices in towing. With our staff, we have over 100 years of experience in towing industry. Myself, and we have been working in the towing industry for the last 18 years. And there are other people who couldn't come here. We individually did it only for the years of towing. And that's how our company. And right now, we have been working across the country, across actually North America, from Canada to US, from east to west. Working with large and small law enforcement agencies. And recently, we have been awarded with the city of San Diego. But we'll go through the list of all our experience shortly. What do? We have been dealing with about 600,000 calls a year in our system. We work with over 300 companies. And collaborating with over 15 million people across the country. Our vision, we want to be a trusted leader in your going and storage lifecycle to client and accountable and efficient solutions that have heard about all those things. Our mission is to empower law enforcement in order to job with law enforcement interaction with you guys, input and collaboration. So we are committed to enhancing customer trust and securing compliance and delivering measurable efficiencies across. Do you have a question, sir? In the back, you have a question? No. Okay. Who we are working with, as you can see the list because we started out with city of Houston. All of you know city of Houston for men, they do about 200,000 plus calls a year. And they deal with about 60 to 75 companies, and there are 60 to 75 vehicle storage facilities within the 6026. So we collaborate with all those store companies and PSF and providing this information and working to all the intricacies of towing processes in the city of Houston, supporting the state of Texas and VDLR guidelines. And CDLR is Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. And we also have been working with Washington, D.C. We are out there, Milwaukee, Detroit. Recently, about 5 cities in California. So we understand several guidelines and laws and stuff like that from east to west. We also have been working with two agencies in Canada. And Saskatoon, the two of the what is this product? The product we call it is GovPro. What it does, it does everything to do with that towing lifecycle, starting from the request all the way to the disposition. The request comes from a law enforcement agency. it goes to the tow company, and then you have the opportunity to raise the accept and reason, then you, once you accept, you go to the scene, you pick up the vehicle, you drop it off at the destination, and then, the fees that accumulate, you release the vehicle, you take all the proper precautions on compliance, documentation, taking of the data. We manage all that in the system. So it's all digital. So what we do is we eliminate paper in the process. Request is done digitally. Dispatch is done digitally. And you will receive the request on your mobile device or your computer. And you can go and accept or reject. And once you have accepted, you can take pictures, you can store all your audio files or video files or documentation. All those things can be stored in one location, and that will be available for more than 3 years support, because in the city of Houston, we probably have data for the last 15 years, so we have reviewed it. And in some of the agencies, we keep all the data for as long as it's needed. But legally and compliance wise, the retention we keep for we generate laptops, like we talked about, and somebody mentioned this, the two laptops you generate, the first one is within 5 days, same as data effective. You have, if you want to 5 days, that you generate a laptop. Sometimes what we do is as soon as you receive the vehicle into your premises, then you can generate the laptop the next day. In the morning, you come, depending on your size of the operation, you may have 1 or you may have 100 vehicles. So you can generate all those laptops once, and you can integrate with LVD, or you can integrate with private agencies who provide you all of the information. And then you can actually mail those documents using your profile mail service provider, such as ADP or then we do all the documents electronically. We keep all the documentation in one system, whereby you will have access to that data. So we heard about all the fines that you get. I mean, that is no different than what they do in Texas. They are also imposed with some fines when they go and do an inspection of your facility, and you do not have that forklift, not have the laptop template or copy of the laptop, then for every day, the fine is like $1,000, $500, $10,000. Let's see. And so some of the tow companies that can go back to paying the fine. So, you know, it keeps you compliant with the guidelines of the state and the local law enforcement agencies. So we work with payments. The agency or the alliance has worked with payment providers, and we also have the same thing, and we integrate that system with the payment providers so that your payments can contactless. Going, you heard about some of it going. Most of the tools that we deal with are non-consent, whether it is law enforcement or incident related or PPI people, which is we also call them non-consent. We keep track of all those tools in one single system. The law enforcement and tow companies alike will have access to their information. We have, we engage the citizen also because it's an asset that the citizen owns and you remove, and then that's why we have all the compliance We have a website for Find My Toll Tab, whereby citizens can go and find the vehicle by entering those together. And once they find it, they can, if the agency decides to present the information, they can find out how much they are going to pay. We at the bottom, we say that it's the estimated value. And also they can file a complaint. Once they leave the vehicle damaged, and all of that memorandum issue if there's any things that is part of the plan, and that complaint will be handled appropriately for the agency. Also, this position, when I talk about this position, there are two types of this position we have. One, the vehicle is released to the like owner or green owner, and also the vehicle is left in the lot and finally to report to the auction. And we follow all those steps in the system.
So for how long is the information available to the consumer?
That's a good question. The consumer gets the information as long as the vehicle is not released. If the vehicle is released, then the consumer should not get the vehicle. However, that information is available to the law enforcement and the toll company. Then we have the mobile insurance. We have various apps with both classes. One person uses an app called Gato, which is available on both Android as well as iOS. Gato company they will be using an app for backup phone. And if you do the option, then we have an app for the option here. And
May I ask a question about that? Sure. I know that there are a number of tow companies, for example, that also own dealerships, right? Or there are a lot of companies that the person never comes to get it, they take ownership of the vehicle and trying to title all of that. But is there a way to connect also with the NBD operations, to make sure that NBD is applying their timelines? Because we don't have any authority over that. Right?
there is, and separate to all these transactional processing, we also have tools whereby the inspection can be done electronically by using an app. The fines can be automatically levied depending on the inspection. All that is managed in the system.
Good to see
These
you.
solutions,
Take care.
we have been talking about our solution is more jurisdictional. It's law enforcement to have their own access. The operation, like, tow companies or the impound lots of the law enforcement agency, they will have their piece of. And then all this are done through technology. And technology is what we say. It's on Microsoft. Azure government cloud, which is compliant. And we as a company are also becoming software providers. And we all are CITES compliant. We have CITES certification. CITES is criminal justice information system. The data that we say we deal with, CITES related data, so we have to. Go back. Then we have, it's a single sign-on, so when you, the law enforcement, you have your Microsoft. Azure or AP Active Directory, we deal with that. And then security, we primarily deal with the data, the information, security, so that, your information and the public information is available. Integration, we integrate many systems that are being used by all the agencies that work with operators. And benefit of using the system is, once again, it is, collaboration. We do collaboration with multiple parties in, from right now, citizen, government agency, and, to our, efficiency, we provide efficiency, all step of the, going like, so request for the, this position, and we deal with citizens first. We have a statewide website, and they will go to one website and where they will be able to take one. Or some information about the life for the last 16 months of the year, they can obtain the information where they will be able to take it to what is, their estimated visa and other information. So what it does is everyone honest, and also reduces the cycle time for the whole operation itself. And we are also compliant with, I mean, we propose compliance with the provider, registered within the state department and the local jurisdiction. And we provide transparency. When we say full transparency in your system, the system is divided into 3 boxes. One box is law enforcement, they will see what we want to see. Another box is show they will see what they are offering to see. In the top, in the citizen, they will see only about the video. Some of the things I think Srinivas is going to talk about what and how we operate in our country.
So these are different screens, how the system can be configured, like depending on the law enforcement agent. Some law enforcement agencies, depending on the crash scene, they would like to quickly get their over. They can choose like the closest collaborator versus the rotation that's going on. Like once you go online, you can track where the driver is. The nearest driver is like 3 minutes away. They will be that direction. So each can be configured, and a law enforcement agent can quickly track the driver. Again, law enforcement agents can monitor all the active calls. See what's the status of each call, whether the driver has arrived at the location or the driver has picked up the phone. In case if they have to drop off calls, they can do that. Pictures is one of the big things, pictures or video. Like we just talked about online. So in order for somebody complain and DOT would like to look at the entire whole data, right from which agency is authorized all the way until are there any damages, are there any fees. Immediately they can pull up the toll recorder and the pictures will be taken. These are fees again. Can be configured if there is a statewide piece, common piece that can be configured, or it can be configured at the jurisdictional level. The law enforcement agency has set aside what is mentioned about urban and rural, but those can be configured at that level. This is within the presentation. The daily storage fee, toll fee, all these different types of fees are segregated in the line item. From many administrative
Are you able to configure those to a particular provider?
Oh,
Or is it just for statewide or jurisdiction? Like if I have a certain set of fees and she has a different set of fees, and
it can be done, yeah. But other agencies, like based on our experience, the state defines that the ordinance city, like a city like city of Houston has an ordinance there. They say that for a light duty, the toll fees is $250. Then there is a release fee of only $1. Each agency decides what need is set for, because these are all incident related, non-consent or trespass fees. So they regulate the rates, how much they can charge. So that way one company will not charge like one rate versus other. But again, it can be configured, the system is designed to handle different countries. So this is the representation receipt, so that way once, again, these are all law enforcement or trespass. So for full transparency, the receipts are available to all the parties, whether it's the law enforcement or any, after a year later, insurance calls, they think, can I pull up a receipt for this? So everybody has access to receipts. Those are the points. This is again, working across several agencies. Notice that for, this is your actual trespass stuff. In our platform, it's called non-consent, PIM reposition tool, whereby, when you take any city, like 3-4 driver calls, and then they're on the line waiting to talk to the dispatcher. The dispatcher can take the reposition information. So what we have done is we have digitized that, reduce the call wait times. So they can just go to the website, depending on which jurisdiction, and then just start inputting all the key information associated. So with that, it immediately sends a thing to the 911 dispatch center or 311, whoever is monitoring. So that eliminates the phone call. Not only that, it gives them an option to review it, then see. Sometimes the driver may, like, let's say, instead of Albuquerque, they report to Santa Fe or vice versa. So they can immediately reject and say that if this does not fall under our jurisdiction, report it to other jurisdiction. So with digitizing, we have eliminated all that waiting and then taking the phone calls going back and forth.
We also do an initial stolen check. With the state. That's to, and like, check for the stolen vehicle. And we present that to the vehicle. Additional.
For the law enforcement officers, like when they're at the location, they can initiate the calls with minimal information. And then they can also track where the driver is, whether it is again GPS, the closest truck option, or if it is a rotation. Or they can just look at where the driver is, so that eliminates officer like making a phone call or radioing to the dispatch center. They can quickly look at whether they've accepted or not, who the company is. A lot of times, officer doesn't know, but this gives the officer a good view of who is coming to give.
And also this is an important tool that the officer spends the least amount of time with incidents.
This is for the drivers, like basically,
Wow.
the operators, the company, like storage, or the driver, or any other user from their office, so they can like on different options. Like as a driver, you can go online, so you get the things depending on the agency configuration, or you set your status offline, so you're not visible map. But and then if you would like to, like as soon as you get the request, whether if it is rotation, the company gets it and company assigns the driver, you can see in the agency. Or you are reporting a private property to a reposition. You can do it right through the app. There are also other tools such as rotation tracker. Let's say your agency adopted only to rotation. Like there are 15 companies. So instead of guessing or waiting or calling the agency to know your rotations are. What this tracker does is it just tells you who is next in line. So let's say you're in 11th position, the tracker says the second company next in line. So you know that you are 9 spots away from you getting the rotation. This is like, a web view of how you can see that, like who the agency is requested, what's their incident number. I think this has a co-authorized, initial co-authority providing you all the information. Right. So even if you lose the paper copy, so it has several different pieces of information, what's the tow requested, who is requesting, and then the vehicle information, and sometimes vehicle condition. And a lot of times, let's say rural areas, there's a big wreck, and then you would like to know the location, how the thing looks like, so they can take a quick couple of pictures, and then you can see those pictures, right? Most of the time you go to the location, then you assess. You may not have the right equipment or any other tools either, but this is where it is helpful, collaborative tool.
So, the dispatch that's completed by the agency that's actually doing dispatch, by the time of tow, is the tow operator do all the data entry right there at the time of tow, or is that something that gets completed from tow company?
So a lot of agencies in our experience we have seen is they put, some of the key information such as vehicle info. By the time they arrive, there is also vehicle information available. When the driver arrives, all they are doing is taking a bunch of pictures, substantiate that there are no damages at the location, which is one of the key things that you will always encounter. Like, can you enforce pictures? So there is an enforcement team where agency can enforce certain things like minimum of 4 pictures or a 30-second video or many other things like you have to mandatorily complete the call within 2 hours time. Like the light. So these are enforcement rules that can be set aside. And it can be again, the state is adopting statewide. So it can be the statewide rules, enforcement rules, or it can be at the jurisdictional level. So those can be.
I'm just thinking about like private property and apartment complex. Somebody talks to people, like how quickly was it able to see?
So as soon as they report, right, like again, different agencies, like state of Texas, within 2 hours, they're supposed to report. And with this tool, with the app handy, quickly they can report it. And as soon as they report it, whether law enforcement agent jurisdiction has approved or not, good part is citizen can go to the website and search immediately. We do not stop them from searching. As long as it has been reported, immediately they can start searching. So it depends on the driver and the tow company.
It was matter if it's a private spot tow or if it's a full company, the same as to.
And the pictures also can tell you on now. And that this is the condition of the vehicle before we go, so the insurance, like the people complaining saying damage my vehicle or whatnot. And that will be reduced.
So that brings up a point for certain agencies, municipalities who use it for parking. As per the state law, they have to take a picture of the location where it has been parked, where the vehicle has been parked, and also the statute that says that you cannot park this vehicle at this location. Likewise for private property, where it says reserved parking, and you do not have the permit to park, they can take a picture of that and get it attached. So that's saying that you have illegally parked my vehicle, but there is the proof that that's fine. So again, all this will be compliant. And this is the public search. Good part is this is available across the board. You can do it at a state level where the entire New Mexico residents can search for their vehicle, no matter where it is stored, or it can be configured at the jurisdictional level. So in this case, this is Harris County, like Houston has this separate, Harris County has this separate. Houston does about 200,000 plus stores, and then Harris County does about close to 80,000 stores. These tools are extremely helpful, again, even including the parameters, search parameters are configurable. We see a complaint section, they can complain to the jurisdiction, they can complain to the state, wherever the complaint needs to be routed, that is good. Also, one of the good part is there is a translator, let's say, somebody wants to look at it in Spanish, they can quickly go and change. This is how the fees are shown, estimated fee. Of course, it says the vehicle is found in the system and has not been released. Says that the vehicle has been stored and at this spot, at this location, including all the details, like from where it is stored and where it is located, along with the description of the fees, the rate. Yeah. And if they would like to file a complaint, they can do that.
That's all we have. I mean, it's 3 different systems. Going and giving you a demo of all the systems, it's going to take 2-3 hours. So we just took some screenshots and showed you how agencies are using the different processes. With that, if you have any questions, we'll have to answer.
What is the cost of this and who would pay for it?
That's something which we haven't thought about it, so for the state of New Mexico, we haven't thought about it. It's crazy.
Parts of it are phenomenal, parts of it is gonna create a nightmare.
That's an excellent question, because we've seen the demo, they gave us a demo, and we were talking about, potentially mandating. We wouldn't necessarily select them, there's no selection, right? The process of every procurement is, and I don't know if that would be, it might have to be legislative, I think what we said for DWI, education, for example. The department has language in the statute that says the department approved DWI provider. And that approved provider happens to be UNM. For continuing in for both vehicles, it has to be the MPD approved provider. And I think they're now 1 and 2. So now there are 2 providers, and I think it started out as just a partnership with the association, and then somebody said, hey, I want to be able to provide that too, and so I don't think we're full on. It became professional agreement with the contract for professional services. So we could do something like that, and I would imagine that we would have to have conversations about it. We have to talk with the association and find out if that's can be aligned, and if that's something that gets passed on to them, right? Person who's vehicles towed. We can't, as a state agency, we wouldn't be able to pay for it, because I think that would violate the
Violates them.
it violates, yeah. it
So,
violates-
I'm sorry, I got a question. You guys are in this
Anti-competitive.
industry. How long would it take for the state or someone to create a site that's very simple? I know I'm not tech at all, but you have a site that says input the information of a vehicle that can be found. Something as simple as that on a state level, right? So if the state would create something that would allow us to input the information of where the vehicle's at, I don't think it would take, I don't know, you're an expert at this. How long would it take for the state to create, or you or somebody to create a site to where we input this information and they can advertise and say, if you're looking for your car anywhere in the state, this is where it's at. How simple would that be? It would not be expensive at all, because we visited that before.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of something, I know that your system is much more intense, but something as simple as that, because that's, I think, the biggest problem we have in New Mexico, is that people can't find their cars, so they say. But it would be something as simple as inputting your information, and there it is, throughout the whole state.
That's a good question. You are thinking about New Mexico, and 50 states, none of the states have a statewide repository for vehicles. We have been proposing to our own state of Texas to create one website like that. And your second question is, how quickly we can do this? And if we are allowed to do it, we will be able to do it within 4 weeks. It shouldn't take that long. It's the time that we will be spending is training people on how to do and what to do, and launching the site and communicating with the public, saying that hey, there's something like this available, so you can go and search for the vehicle. Those are the ones which will take some time. But actually creating the website and making it available to the whole community to enter the data and making it available for the public.
It should be done on the state level. It's different, so many agencies, I mean, again, it's as simple as looking for your tax records. You put your UPC and then it's there. So it's very simple. It didn't have to be that complicated for people to find the field.
For those who didn't hear our mother's question, he was basically asking how easy or how simple and how quickly could it be done for somebody in the state, an agency, to develop a similar website that would just be a way to identify where the
That's it.
and public search. I'm not an IT person. The experience that I have in other agencies is that there is expertise. And so there are a couple of ideas that I have. So let me do some asking in our agency. And MBD also has a partnership with a company that develops similar kinds of things. We can see if that's something that they can do.
So I think that's one of the biggest problems that I hear. I mean, we're always available, but I mean, it's very simple.
It's kind of like the fact that I answer about 12 phone calls a day asking about a car, and I'm like, I don't have your car, dude, I don't know.
So
And then they say, well, dude, can you tell me about, there's 20 tow companies
It's-
that tow for the city, I have no. clue
it's
where your
it's
car
very
is.
it's very different for Santa Fe because you guys have a daily rotation. Here, we're weekly, so it's very
Yeah.
simple. There's 3 companies on. Hey, where was the car picked up from? So and so. Who authorized the tow?
Right.
If it was APD, it's either south, north. Again, it's
It ties,
different.
it ties into all of it, because like, you know, sometimes they're calling for a city call, sometimes their car was towed by the sheriff, sometimes with
That's-
the DPI, sometimes their car's just not where they left it.
Right.
And I don't know where your car is, I didn't tow it.
That's where that comes in, where everybody that tows a vehicle, to me, it seems like really simple, put it on one site at a state level. This is the number, this is the plate, and this is where it's at. It's not that complicated.
And the state agencies actually does have the resources to have their IT team develop something like that. Of course, there's always a cost, right? And so the experience I have working through the legislative process when the bill comes out and says, we want to have this done, and they ask what's the IT cost, it always hovers between, $500,000 and something like that. So, that's the cost of doing business these days. And if you have to use an outside vendor, it goes even higher. But I have several ideas, so I've been taking some notes of it, and I'll take it back and look at it all. That's excellent. There will be a price.
No, they'll beat the price.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. We don't, no, but that, I mean, I think it's something simple.
Yeah.
It's simple
It
enough
seems
to
like
do.
it's simple.
I think.
It always seems like it's simple, but there are very few things are, yeah, so. Excellent question.
One thing, and I want to ask you, because you've been in the MVD industry. What is proof of ownership? I'm sorry, but it's one of the biggest, we're always afraid. I'm sorry.
I get it.
And I'm sorry, maybe this is a question for after they're done, but I don't want to forget.
You guys-
We're gonna have it open, I mean, we'll just call it Q and A now, I know Amy has some questions too, so.
Yeah,
But you're perfect task.
okay, so ownership documents, you know, of course, that a lien holder actually owns the vehicle, right? So
For releasing purposes, I'm asking.
for releasing purposes, I would think that it's, vehicle registration with your name on it,
Right.
vehicle title with your name on it.
Current registration, expired registration?
If you're doing an MVD search and you don't see anybody else as a registered vehicle, registered owner, even though it's expired and they're the most recently registered owner, I would say that is sufficient.
again, but if you ask certain divisions,
They have different answers.
yes. So that's one thing that's never been clarified, right? Somebody walks in with a tent tag. This is my proof. Is it proof of ownership? We'll do whatever you guys say, at least my company will. I just need clarity.
What do
And
you
that-
mean, temp type?
A tent tag.
But
Like from
then,
the
so
dealer-
sometimes, yeah, dealer tech tag, we've had dealers that have had a vehicle, you know, because again, we filter calls through, Independence and towing where they're trying to clarify, hey, I have this dealer coming into my tow yard, you know, we have this car. They have a title, it hasn't been registered fully into the dealership's name because it's only assigned, right, on the back of the title, can I release it?
Or no title. No
Or
title at all. We
yeah,
walk in
because
with a
it's
tent
for
tag,
the floor plan, right?
either
There's so
expired,
many-
current.
Yep,
They have another thing is that people walk in with an application of title, which they went, gave the MVD the title, they gave them the application,
and they
paid.
haven't received the.
They haven't received the title,
Because it's mailed.
correct, because now it's mailed. So now, do we want them to wait?
So you probably know this better, right? Now that it's a mail, title, does the title actually show it? And you're just like.
If they put title app, yes, it's already been processed. So I've actually told folks that is sufficient because it's being mailed, right? It's not gonna come in right away. We understand that there's, you know, a delay in getting the title, which was supposed to be, you know, oh, it's gonna be one day, but here we are, it takes about 3 to 5 business days typically for someone to receive their title. Banks take it when they're gonna pay out on a finance loan for a dealer, so that's what I went with when I said, yes, that should be sufficient.
'Cause there's about 5 or 10 things that people present to us, and we're just a little, at least, I want to know what's right, what you guys want us to release vehicles with.
I would say that it's, no, don't apologize. And one of the things that the Alliance did ask us for early on, and so did Amy, asked if we could just give a list of what qualifies as an ownership document. And I have been very hesitant to do that, because then I think it gives people an excuse to say, this isn't on the list, you can't use it. And there might be some things that are on the list, which then also puts you at risk. Because then you don't release a vehicle with what is truly an ownership document, and you can assume that, right? So I hesitate to do that, you know, coming from the OBD world, when we had to come up with a list of approved documents to get UID, for example. We did a lot, I mean, I was all over the state, I was talking to newspapers, I was on radio stations, I was at, law enforcement, meetings with like, loss control, loss prevention. We talked to banks, we talked to schools, we talked to other state agencies. Everybody who relied on an ID to provide their services. Are you going to accept this temporary driver's license, right? From to no longer open county? And I'm sure that they could see the titles that happened after I left them. But so I hesitate to put all of those documents out there. So if you have questions, reach out to us. We'll give you advice that you can rely on.
Okay. Anything in writing though, because unfortunately, our experience has been, so,
I would hesitate to put anything in writing, because it's not an official, it's dealing with a specific situation.
I think there's
So-
still some research that needs to be done
Yes.
to clarify ownership.
can we get in trouble for releasing a vehicle improperly?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the
If
clarity.
you release a vehicle to some, and we do have.
Gray area, y'all.
No, and that's exactly what it is. It's a gray area. That's why
Yeah.
I've asked that, and depending on who I talk, I get different, definitions, and it's like, it's one thing that's always been gray, and I mean, since this is our opportunity, well, I thought I'd ask.
Perfect, thank you.
I have this document from the PRC dated 2012 that specifically discusses what the registered owners, it says only registered owners can get towed autos back. And since no other rulemaking has been made on this issue, since the PRC has distributed it, this document stands. And it specifically says that a.
I got some glasses.
No, but you see what I'm talking about?
A purchase agreement is not enough. The PRC rules only allow the vehicle's owner, the owner's agent, the lien holder of.
Lien holder of a stored motor vehicle that is not being kept for investigation to get the automobile back after paying proper fees and showing proof of ownership. Proof of ownership, the rules state, is a certificate of title or evidence of current registration with proper personal identification. Keyword there is current. So.
So Tech, is that her registration?
So let me tell you what I do, because the temp tag has a 30-day allowance for them to be able to transfer the title. And you have temp tags now that have their name on it, with the VIN number, with the current expiration date. I accept that as proof of ownership. But if they walk in with a typed title application, with no title number assigned to it, I do not accept that as proof of ownership.
But if it has a title, like if I literally went there to your service and said, hey, I need to transfer this title to my name, like when I got out. And it shows the title number, everything, we can send you the receipt of the title. We would send that because that's a government.
Because that title application issued from MDD is an MDD document stating that title has been transferred to that owner.
So
So
that's.
that
And
is
what about-
an acceptable
What
document.
about a title that's been signed on the back as a owner, like they.
So it says on here that they have to take that to the motor vehicle department
That's what I'm saying.
and put it in their name.
Yeah, they-
So it says that, you cannot do it on a signed
One TRT
title.
investigator tried to force us to release two vehicles
See how-
that were not abandoned. And they would not let us, they wouldn't let us do it.
So that 2012 letter is making reference to the PRC rules at the time. The rules have changed since then, right? So there's nothing specific in the rules that talks about particular documents. But I did reach out to MDD, because it's been a few years since I've been there, to determine what are considered ownership documents. And an open title, it's not something that's signed is. And I think that, for purposes of this, Adelina's correct. We need to have some additional conversation about and move in.
Thank you.
But the,
Trust me.
if you're taking documents at face value, because we do this all the time, even at DOT. We take documents at face value. And if I have a title that is your name, and as the seller you signed off, and as the buyer I have signed off, that to me is sufficient proof of ownership, even though it's not registered.
Regardless of the time, if you bought this vehicle 3 years ago, you have not changed it or registered it, it was signed over 3 years ago, would you guys consider that?
And you were doing the motor vehicle check as part of your requirement for a non-consensual tow, correct?
Non-consent. So you bought this car 3 years ago from her. She signed it over to you 3 years ago.
Yes.
And you were driving the vehicle currently. You get it impounded and you walk into my office with a 3-year-old signed over title. I don't care what you, like, whatever, if you say, go for it, release it, we'll release it. I don't want to hold the car. I just want to know what the procedure is.
No registered.
But when you run over verification on that, the MPD will come back and whoever's in front of that title as being the actual physical owner.
But that's
And that's where
exactly,
we get two different.
but here's the thing, the document that Armando just talked about is exactly the document you would take to MPD to transfer.
Yes,
ownership.
the title application form, yes, because that would be a process through the DMV and they're just waiting on the title. But if they walk in with the title and sign on the back saying that they're the owner of it, when we run over verification, it shows the person on the front as being the physical owner.
Right.
So if we go ahead and release that vehicle with that title to them, the original owner, when we send out our paperwork, if we have to, they can come back and they can sue us for the.
I don't think
For
so.
the vehicle,
So
somebody
can
that.
so can the person that bought it, right,
Right.
that signed it over to as the buyer.
And that's why we need something
Not
in
always.
writing saying that you probably should
Standard
be
dimensions
not
like
entitled like that.
We would like to cut through the gray area, and that way nobody
It's
gets in
two
trouble.
different people.
So if the owner, the registered owner at MDD has already signed that title over.
Yeah,
The person has not
Assumption.
affected that title and has not registered.
but what if?
But they have had a sales agreement.
But what
Yeah,
if the people that fit the purchase agreement?
No, I know, it's not based on the purchase agreement.
There's a
That,
lot of people who park their cars with their titles in it, have their vehicles stolen, if their titles in it, we can scribble names on it, and then it's like they put it on it.
Then I don't need that.
It's not
then
that.
in my opinion, that's a civil matter between the previous owner and the new owner.
Right, but they go after us, they don't go after, they immediately go after us.
And I just want you to know, in this situation, if it's an open title in the glove box,
Hey, listen to the answer.
what I do in that situation, if it's an open title in the glove box, and I bought this 10 years ago, and that's my car, I want you to let me have access to my car. I say, go get a letter from law enforcement. If they give you permission, I give you permission.
An open title is not, it's a signed title. So if somebody has stolen a vehicle, right, and they sign the title over to themselves, and then they get in the crash and they stolen it to the property, that's a civil matter. And I understand, they're coming after you as well, that's why you have all the requirements. But it's, that, I think that you would be defensible to say you have paper.
Well, it depends, a good lawyer would be like, we should go off on Friday, and say, we should release it, and then that would mean,
That you should go off the order.
if you have to reach another lawyer, you're not, you lose the defense of that.
Into their name.
Yeah, but we
That makes
don't,
it 100% legal.
but we don't authorize, we don't have any authority over those interview processes, right? So for our purposes, no, that's a totally different, but yeah.
But I got one more thing on the note, so. Okay. So, the GovTo thing, I see where it's, very Uber-like, it might work for Albuquerque, I don't see it working for any of any area of the state. I've been working with our local dispatch authorities on developing a system so that the people can look up where their car was towed immediately and then find it that way. We're still gonna get the phone calls if you tow it, we're not gonna use that resource, and we're gonna get called by the same car 10 times a day, I get that. But I think that's the basic streamline. The dispatch authority already runs the NCIC, the MVRs, and we have the information, copy and paste it, put it here, it's done. I mean, there's one more step that they have to do, and it's not mandating it on us. So I know I was told that Albuquerque wants this GovTo system put in there. I think what we need to do is put, what I'm gonna do next week is put a survey out to the entire tow industry to see if you guys wanna do this. And if this is something mandated on us, then we need to have a voice at the table in legislation where they're gonna try and mandate this on us, so we can figure out if we want this or not. So if the majority say you want it, then I will keep my mouth shut. But if you say we're gonna fight it, then I will stand on that front line and I will fight this.
Can I answer your question? You made a statement that it's only for metropolitan areas, which is not true. It can work for rural, it can work for metropolitan. Metropolitan areas where there is ample communication channels available, so you can work to your rural-like concept. But if you are in the rural areas, it works purely off of your telephone and internet.
I didn't mean to insult, I think
No,
your
no.
system is very, very good.
I just wanted to
Somebody
clarify
wants-
that.
Wants
Sorry.
to buy it, to do that, but if we're to be mandated on us, it's not a good
So
system.
that's a different question which we cannot answer.
Yes.
But technically, all I can say is it will work on both metropolitan as well as rural areas. That's all I can make a statement.
Thank you for that. Any other questions while we are still here for, DOT? Comment, Louise, if you have it?
That question for you, Alicia, I'm your co-host. The question is, if somebody uses social platforms, got your attention. There's hundreds of evidence. Your department requests that based on recommended by essential and non-essential parts. They do.
Absolutely regulate, totals per hire. So I think that's the information that we've given you to date. We've been very consistent, across the board. And beyond that, I don't think that this is the appropriate venue for us to have this conversation.
No, it's just not that exclusive. Same guys.
This is not the appropriate venue for us to have this conversation. I will ask you to intervene.
We can have a conversation.
As I understand it, I don't think Mr. Collins is happy.
Are there any other questions? Anyone have any other questions regarding, any of the things that we've discussed today? This is an opportunity for you guys to ask about communication, tariffs, laws, regulations, compliance issues, and understanding compliance issues.
I think it might be good if the investigators like bring in the handbook and investigations. So that I'm safety, two different investigators tell you two different things. And right now it's, I know the website is really hard to find the rules. Like when we signed up with PRC, they gave us the handbook. That was so hard. They said, you have it covered. We don't really have anything to go out. People are telling us different things. It's hard to know who to listen to.
So, does your computer have access to the internet?
We are not on the Wi-Fi.
So it's actually super easy to access the statutes and the regulations. And all we did is go to those regulations online and page by page, and then we use that master copy to make, larger pieces for all of our group. We did have boxes that were made at one point. But those got distributed, so you have access to all of those things, and so do our staff. So if there's ever a time that our staff gives you information that you think is not in line, or you're getting conflicting information, feel free to reach out. We get that, I won't say all the time, but it's not, we do get information. People say, wait a second, I'm getting conflicting messages. And then we have an internal conversation, it's training opportunity for us.
What we will do on our website is link exactly where these are at, so that we can send that over to you when we send, the recorded session.
What I will say about it, though, is the State Record Center and Archives changed their mechanism for how to access the rules. And so you have to go in, you used to be able to go in and just print up the entire title, Title 18 all the way through. Now you have to go in section by section, and it offers two options. It offers the HTML option and the PDF option. And so it just, you have to go into each one, and it's cumbersome. That's not our system, that's the State Record Center and Archives, and we give them that feedback. It's hard for us to even do our own research. But that's out there.
But like when the investigators come, it'd be nice to just have a paper copy, like, look, this is what we're doing on. All on the same page at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I will also say that, there are times that they say, well, this is a violation of 18.3.12.20. Well, 18.3.12.20 has several paragraphs, and so I want to know, tell me exactly which paragraph, tell me exactly how this is a violation. And so I think that level of clarity is also important to populate that. So, I'm not at all opposed to getting calls directly from you guys for us to ask those questions, because it becomes a little more. And there are some times that I don't know, and I have to go with it. But yeah, you have the ability to do it exactly the same way.
Other questions?
I'll talk about it. I just had a question of, do we have any time frame on the tariffs? We're talking about an economic. Analyst. So, I believe the state's having a hard time finding one.
We are having a hard time.
So when we ask anybody around here that, I mean, what kind of economics do we need to go over this? Do they got to be state certified? What?
So we just need an economist, that's all. And I somebody breathing and willing to do the work. Yes.
So if anyone
I
here
mean,
knows
cost of
any
doubles since
economists,
last time they
please
did
reach
tariff.
out to us.
It's really
We
expensive.
can share it.
And then you got the fuel on top of that.
No, I don't disagree with you. I agree with you 1,000,000%. I am 100% behind you guys and the terrorists.
So how do we fast track that, get it back?
I can try, that's probably.
So, yeah, so you guys put it for our own, for good?
Well, we still, depending on what you're asking for, we will either approve, or if it's something that seems outside of what has been previously approved, depending on what you're looking for, we may ask for the economist's input. We have an agreement with the PRC, their economist has agreed to, on a case-by-case basis, look at things that we refer to her. She is not, we are not her priority. All of the PRC, work is her priority, so sometimes it's really delayed. That's part of what happened with the, she's been also AD. But, yeah, I think our next steps, if we're, like I said, Adelina gave me a lead on Thursday, that I'll follow up on Monday. And hopefully we can do something quickly with that. I can't give you a specific time, I'm sorry.
But some are approved at this point.
Some
So
are,
they are getting that.
some are approved.
So we'll let them email and kind of looking for those guys that may get approved.
You can definitely do that.
That would work.
We're trying to stay pretty consistent. Like I said, we did approve, in error for 3 folks that were trying to scale back, and we have the authority to do that. But yeah. There was somebody back there first.
So what about the final approval of the new rates? Will be obsolete when the new come out?
We'd have to look at that on an individual basis. We know for sure that there's one company that was approved by PRC that has very, very high rates. That I don't necessarily think are appropriate, but we'll have to see what actually comes out in that statewide rate. If somebody has a current tariff that is above and beyond that, I don't know if we would ask them to come into compliance with the statewide rate, or if they would just be, have a new like approved tariff specific to that. I don't know. There are options, and we would work with that particular carrier to make sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of the state.
Well, if they approve them, why don't they just go across the board and say this is the new tariff? I mean,
That's not how it works.
it should.
On one level, yes, on others, no.
I know there was a question earlier about, some law enforcement agencies still requiring them to follow certain tariffs, that the PRC had. And even though they were approved for an increase, they're not allowing them to do that. Is there anything that they can do, or that your department can do to ensure that those law enforcement agencies, I don't know, respect that?
I believe it's Santa Fe PD will not allow them to charge their approved tariff. They can only have the state approved tariff through Santa Fe PD and Las Cruces. And
We don't have, we can have conversations to find out, what the reasoning is, and maybe kind of reach some sort of middle ground. We might ask some of your group to accompany us on that. But they have full authority over the that's outside of our control.
any other questions?
And these tariff questions were the hardest. And the
Sorry.
ownership document, that's okay. I didn't mean.
It's, and I know, I kind of know what you're gonna say. This is something I've thought about for a while. So everybody lately has been running around and pulling their numbers and everything together to fill out these applications for tariff increases. I mean, $200 from the tariff increase. More than likely down the line, there's gonna be a state mandated one through the replacement original. Wouldn't it have made more sense to just help, to send something out to all the tow companies, all the companies, and have them submit numbers, not necessarily, it's like survey, and then have somebody go through all of those, come to a conclusion, and just, because right now, company A, company B are not charging the same amount, so
Right.
he tows your car. You come get it. You pay him. It's been in his yard 1 day, whatever that total stuff, boom. Now, next day I tow your car for whatever reason. You come to me, my rate is either lower or higher. And now I gotta argue with this person and explain to them that, well, we all have different tariffs.
Yeah, I agree. And-
The thing is that we're the ones that have to argue with people. Same thing with the proof of ownership.
So,
you know, If I give a car to some guy and it turns out that he stole it from his grandmother, now I got the grandmother and the brother in my office,
literally, everybody and their grandmother.
in my business. No, I'm just saying, you know, like these are like things that we deal with. And people that we deal with, that a lot of times they're not
Oh, I know.
cordial.
I know, because they end up calling us.
Get paid an admin fee to get stabbed.
Huh?
Did you get paid an admin fee to get stabbed?
Yeah, is there a stabbing fee I can have?
Hazardous fee.
So I know, because they call us too, when they complain about, well, you each have your own return.
So I mean, I'm saying that would have been,
I agree, and that's exactly where the Alliance came in, and they submitted a white paper that had Western tariffs that would replace the statewide tariff. The legal advice that we got was to rely on the economists. Because it's taking us so long to get an actual economist, we have a couple of other options available to us. Like I said, I'll reach out to the lead that, on Thursday. The second thing is we can potentially put tons of pressure on our campus to have our economists actually, GOT economists, stop thinking about how much money they're collecting on excise tax and all those other things to support our DOT projects. And ask him to put pressure on our economists to actually give us the services that we need. That's the other option. And if all of that fails, then I think we talked about a lot of different ways to take the white paper that the Alliance has already given us and just make some what we consider common sense approach and to engage with you all to make sure that we're settled on something that is agreeable to the entire nation. And the white paper, I don't remember, I looked at it on Wednesday, details, of everything that's in there, but I don't know that it took into consideration all of like urban and rural and the, going out.
in route,
All of that sort of stuff.
Well, because we get that in Santa Fe too, because yeah, I go 4 miles to get a Santa Fe PD call, but I can go upwards of 25 miles to get a sheriff call. You know, I mean, so it's not just rural areas, I mean, even in town, you know, if you're on the sheriff rotation, you're going from one end of Santa Fe to Madrid,
Yeah.
Right, and it, you know, that's,
and you're just eating that cost.
right, and that becomes super, super tricky, because then all of a sudden, you have to check a box, was this city, was this county, was this above 5 miles, was this below 10 miles, then it becomes cumbersome. So, you know, I don't know, if part of the conversation is just build that into cost of the tow, and hookup fee. And maybe that's the way to do it, so that you don't end up being, I mean, I think part of what I heard Mr. Hall say is trying to avoid over-regulation, right? I think that's,
Or even a fuel surcharge, anything over
you guys have.
X amount, I'm talking for the non-essential, is it on there?
Yeah, okay.
I think so.
Yeah, there is.
I think the fuel surcharge is on the.
Maybe that could apply, I don't know,
And then we need to figure out how to make sure that that is.
over X amount of miles,
Right. And
$10 surcharge.
we need to make sure that what we would like to do is ensure that accommodates every time that the fuel prices go up, like they are now, but when they go down, so it's protecting. Right, because we all know, we're still paying X.
It's okay though, because
$10.
when the fuel goes down, our insurance is gonna go up, it's gonna climb up. It's gonna be perfect time.
There's already something in place, for it, just so you know. Yeah,
Yes.
so there's not, it goes up and down. You have to calculate it, so it's already there.
Right. So.
You've done a good job there, it's not.
Right.
Back to Mr. Beltran's issue of releasing, you, if I'm reading between the lines, aren't ready to take a stand on what actually is the paperwork that we use, and leaving the decisions up to us. Can you send out a best practices with what the department, PRB says, okay, we've gone through this, we've vetted this will work, this will work. Just the best practices for us to follow, so we have something and we know where you guys are coming from, and so you can enter it into rulemaking or do what you need to do.
You're talking about ownership documents. That's what-
Ownership documents.
Yeah,
yes.
I think we could put out a best practice. I'm hesitant to give like a flat out, like, this is a be all end all list, because I don't want that to limit you guys.
But best practice.
Right, but best practice is something we can rely on, and maybe some catch-all phrase of including such as, or other documents that achieve the same intent.
Thank you, thank you.
But who do we write a letter to?
Just lean on me.
It's like any condiment, you need to like,
I mean, I'll do it.
I'm sure you would.
I got a calculator right here.
I reached out even to, the auto dealers association, like, our teams over there, to ask if he had any progress. And then we reached out, we were hesitant, other than not offer to give on the sports. And at one point, I was like, well, that's like asking the fox to mind the hen house. And then we thought, no, it's not. They're advocating for the entire industry. And so we reached out to her and they're not gonna say.
Did I understand it correctly? It is illegal to have a drop fee in New Mexico? That's not legal?
Well, we don't have the drop fee in the tariff. Right, it's not an approved rate for non-consensual tows.
For non-consensual, law enforcement says, pick up this vehicle, you take it back to your place, that's all there is to it. There's not, you can't drop it on the site, basically, that's what that's saying?
Well, you can, but you don't get anything for it. You just drove there for the drive.
So you're not collecting?
You get nothing for it.
You can't collect it?
You just have to put it down and drive away.
You got there to test your windshield and put it down, and it's probably, where we see the biggest complaint is on private property. You know, like at an apartment complex, when a tow truck, picks something up and somebody runs out in their pajamas and says, hold on, that's my car, you can't take that, and then they're charging people. What we hear often is they're telling them, okay, for $125 cash, $150 cash, we'll just drop it for you.
That's easy.
Yes.
So what about one more thing, private property tows in rural America? Do you have to have that sign posted on that piece of property for them, or how does that work? Like I said, I live out in a farming community. You guys drive in and leave their car on a farm for weeks.
Yeah.
So the farmer wants that vehicle removed. And I have the farmer sign that. Is that legal or is that not legal?
We'll have to follow I don't know right off the top of my head, but yes, you get the tow authorization from the property.
Tow authorization from the property owner, that's good.
Yeah. Commercials where you have delightful signage.
Commercial sign, residential.
Yeah, that, and make sure that the date stamps are correct, because there's some rules that talk about, like, the time of the photo that you take before you tow it, and after, like, there are all kinds of things, and I can tell you, some of our investigators are really into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we learned about the, commercial property because we wanted to have, those cars, curbstoners, right, that put their cars out for sale, and it's a massive plot of land, and it took us months to figure out who owned it. Turned out that the city owned it, and then finally they were able to remove, it was about 20 vehicles off of Coors. Now there's a Starbucks there and a Taco Bell, but that little plot of land looked like a dealership. And there was a gentleman that would literally sit out there, and the residents had already complained about this person being there. So we were trying to figure out, well, who owns it? Finally, TLB realized, oh, city owns it. So that was a work in progress, but they now put signs that you can't park there, you can't park vehicles there. But now there's another section, they moved down to, Coors Maraná. And there's cars out there, but the property owner there allows them. So I can't use you guys to remove them. So unless it's the property owner calling, we can't do anything.
But then does he have to be, registered as a dealer?
We can look at it, we can look at it that way.
One more problem that hasn't been addressed yet.
Oh.
Okay. It's a complicated problem. So more frequently, what I'm running into is we impound the vehicle, we run our MVR, we send out our letters, it gets abandoned, we take all the paperwork to load the vehicle, and they switched owners a week before we took the paperwork. This is becoming a problem, and so right now, we just have to restart all the paperwork all over again. They are doing this to weaponize against us. They're not actually doing it with the purpose of getting the vehicles out. And I haven't been able to think of a solution of what we can do to fix that. Because they need the right to be able to transfer it to their name so they can get the vehicle, but yet when it still gets abandoned, it's kind of defeating the purpose, is resend all letters, you're waiting another 7 days and all of this. And I see this with border patrol impounds more than anything. So, I'm just giving you this problem to ponder about because I haven't thought of a solution in it. But just know this is in the background, that it's something that needs to be addressed.
And I think that that's probably a conversation for us to coordinate. I don't want to push it off to them, because I don't know yet if it's 100% theirs, and we don't have authority, because it's not associated with actual tow. It might be from storage, but all of that transfer of ownership is Latin and it's world. So we have a couple things to talk to them about ownership documents and and I think that you had mentioned that choice before, but I wasn't quite wrapping my head around it. Now that you've said that. Okay.
I do think it would be a good idea to work with MVP and DOT, because what constitutes the ownership documents to us is completely different from the things you just did. So I think it would be good to get them from.
Excellent, thank you. I like collaboration.
Any other questions?
Just real quick, back to the drop, drop fee, like, you hook fee, and when they hooked it up, drop this, like, a hook fee with a mileage.
The hookup fee requires hookup in first mile. So there is no such thing as a drop fee. I know that a couple of people have described to me and explained to me, I understand the purpose of the drop fee, you get all the way out there, right? Go hook it up and then they ask you to drop it, that's, I get it. I don't know what the best mechanism is to make sure that you guys are out. Oh, we have to find that. But yeah, hook up and first mile, those are together, you have to do it once in a while. In order to charge you.
I would hope.
So I'm just envisioning that. I'm just envisioning that there's gonna be like outside certain apartment complexes, a mile away, there would be that toll that curbs to bring all the people.
Yeah.
I just can't thank you guys again, I really appreciate it. Like I said, the most difficult questions were these last about ownership and tariff, and even at that, they're not so horrible. So I don't feel too bad that I didn't want to so hard. Thank you.
Thank you for opening the door.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Well, that concludes this town hall, and we look forward to having more dialogue with Alicia and team and the industry.
Thank you.